Hello everyone. It's me, Chef Commander Coffee, and I'm here to have a little chat about Magic the Gathering, particularly Ikoria expansion. So I thought I've done a lot of drafts. They are currently on my Twitch page. They are viewable in the VODs if you're interested. I will probably not be downloading all of them. I might grab a few just to show them off. I also have the VOD of me playing a particular standard deck, which will be coming. Well, this will be a video sort of preceding that one getting or finishing uploading, which is Lazar's Postal Service. It's a sort of Sultai Toolbox deck. This video is more. I just want to talk about. I'll do a set summary. I feel like this is something I failed to do with Theros, and I should do it. I actually didn't really do much Theros content. I've only just uploaded the VODs for all the drafts I did back in the way back when. And I wanted to talk about Ikoria in summary of like how it is as a set for people who are interested in it, or my experiences with it as a set. And that includes both the standard and in draft. So we'll start with draft. As you guys know, I played draft until I earned 100 packs purely from playing traditional draft, which is the best of 3 draft with its new changes. I earned 100 packs, which most of them were from 2 wins. I had a few 3 wins. I had a couple of 0 and 1 wins, but mostly 2 wins. It didn't take too long in the grand scheme of things. I still didn't have near enough cards to consider my collection ready for all the sort of jank I wanted to play in standard, but it was fine. It was fine. It was good. I will say of the draft. What is my opinion of the draft? I'm not going to compare it to other draft formats per se. I'm just going to talk about what I found to be good. In my opinion, Ikoria is a pretty fine draft format. It's pretty good. Give it like a solid 7 or an 8 even. It's pretty nice. You could play almost any archetype, any color combination, wedge or just dual color. You can even go as far as play 4 or 5 color, and it supports that. So it's very lenient on what kinds of colors you want to play and what archetypes you want to play within those colors. They're all viable, basically. Is what I'm trying to say. There are quite a few bombs, but there's also pretty good answers to them across the board. Sideboarding is really fun. Cycling helps the format be a bit more consistent. I won't say it's a particularly fast format. What I've noticed is that it very much relies on people stalling out, board states getting gummed up, and maybe 1 or 2 key threats punching through them. I will have a quick talk about my draft on MTGA, at least in terms of experiences. Like what sort of cards get passed. In particular, ultimatums tended to get passed around a lot. People would regularly pass ultimatums through their first, second, third, fourth pick, which I find absolutely ridiculous because the ultimatums are a 7 mana win spell. And yes, they're very hard to cast because they're mana cost, but in many cases, if you manage to cast an ultimatum, you won that game. So it seems very silly that people weren't including or building around cards like that. It just didn't make sense to me. So ultimatums got passed around a lot. Some real unspoken heroes of that draft, which I don't really think I appreciated properly until towards the end, but they really overperform, is the main Servile a lowly 1/4 with Vigilance, 4/2, and the Goriak, which is a lowly 2/4 with Vigilance for 3. Both of these cards really overperformed. In fact, any card with 4 toughness tended to be the bomb, right? If it's got 4 toughness, it's keeping you alive until turn 5 or 6, right? That's basically how I felt about the Ikoria draft. And because of that, it means that you could play very dirty decks, because a lot of the cards with 4 toughness meant if you had to double block something, you didn't lose the second creature. 4 power was sort of like the cutoff point. There were cards that grew beyond 4 power, there were cards that were well beyond 4 power, but for the most part, 4 toughness was the go-to place. 4 toughness did a great job at blocking most things. So yeah, I'd say it's definitely I'd say it's a set where the stat that you're most interested in is 4 toughness, which in my opinion, made Abzan particularly good. Abzan had the best options for high toughness creatures at common. It had the main Serval, it had the Goriak, and it had the Gloom Pangolin. Gloom Pangolin didn't have Vigilance, but it had 5 toughness, so it made it even like that little bit extra oomph. And whilst they're very low power creatures, so you're not killing anyone with them, they give you a lot more time to build up towards cards that you do want to play as your chosen bombs. In particular, some nice common ones that I found really did very well was the Honey Mammoth. This card, the life gain, definitely not inconsequential. And being a 6/6 for 6, this is just a really solid card. This card got work done. Overall, as far as the colours go in the set, between the different... I'm not going to talk about the wedges, I'm going to talk about the dual colours for the most part, or, you know, just as a mono thing. As far as white goes, white was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. White was definitely not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It had some cards that completely made archetypes, right? The problem with white is that white was not very good at playing as a solo color, right? White was definitely not very good at playing as I am primarily a white deck. But it was very good at adding additional cards that made certain archetypes fantastic. For example, Fighters 1 is probably one of the best combat tricks I've ever seen in a draft for a long time. You can... 2 creatures get indestructible +1/+1. It's just insane value. Yes, it requires you to target a human and a non-human. That is not as difficult as it sounds. One of the best combat tricks available, really. Light of Hope is a inconsequential card that doesn't mind being in your main deck, but also can be sideboarded. And it fills a lot of roles. It's not bad. It's not a bad card. I want to mostly talk about like the uncommons and the commons as opposed to the mythics and things, but Flourishing Fox, this card wrecks in the cycling deck. This is the biggest threat in the cycling deck, and you just gotta get more of them, really. Flourishing Fox is great. Swallow Hole, great piece of removal. Very, very good piece of removal. Checkpoint Officer helps Durdle games out. Divine Arrow, always solid as just as a kill spell. Serval, again, overperformed like crazy, which is very nice. Pacifism was always good. Will of the All Hunter was a combat trick I didn't actually end up using most of the time, but the fact that it has cycling means you can put it in decks and not feel bad if you do have to cycle it. So I'll give it that. It's one that you don't mind slotting into a lot of decks, and it has the potential to have a very big upside. Otherwise, the cycling is just cool. Helica Glider, flyers were total menace in the set. Like, you could build decks that just built flyers, and it was just really good. So Helical Glider was very solid to have to pick up as an additional flyer, even if it's not like the biggest threat as a flyer. Flyers tended to get ignored. Lava Venturer was fantastic if you could pick one up. They're rare though. I'm going to consider most of the rares and mythic rares in this set to be very, very playable. A lot of them were. But yeah, Lava Venturer is one of them. Private Sergeant was okay, not that great for the human decks. Sanctuary Lockdown was the Anthem effect that made human decks really good. This is definitely first pickable, and you'll sometimes pick up 2 of them during a draft. It makes it very, very solid. Snare Tactician is a common card that literally made the cycling deck good. You could draft like 4 copies of Zenith Flare if you're lucky. But most people will have to settle for a couple of copies of Snare Tactician. And this card is single-handedly what I believe made cycling good. There were many situations where I was like, oh, these cycling decks aren't so bad. And then they'd drop a Snare Tactician, and I would go on to lose the game because of that. If you don't have an answer for these guys, you just lose. They are insane. So, Slender Mare is probably the least exciting of the cycling creatures that put counters on things, but it's okay. You know, nothing wrong with the stat lines. All right. White had okay stat lines in this format, I will say. For the most part, they had okay stat lines. They weren't anything special, but they were fine. Blade Banish. This is a piece of removal you can main deck, and it will normally find a target. And that target you will want to get rid of, so that's nice. Again, gonna try and skip over the mythics, and rares, but for the most part, Cub Warden good, Snapdack's good, Mothra good. Day Squad Marshals actually pretty solid. As I said, 4 toughness is what you want to block the board up, which means 3 power is what you want to kill things that are on the board. So Day Squad Marshal will tend to trade itself and leave a token behind. Not the best value for a 4-mana creature, but it's okay. Vulpikeet, probably one of the best and most versatile mutate cards in the set. This turns a creature basically into like a pseudo Thunderdrake or like a the elemental thing from War of the Spark, or the other elemental thing. It gets +1/+1 counters when you cast non-creatures. This one gets +1/+1 when something mutates onto it, or you mutate it onto something else. Also gives flying. So it gives a good keyword, and it also makes a creature larger. So this basically, Vulpikeet makes threats, which is really good at common. It's a common, you have to treat it like that. It's a common creature which makes threats out of anything you have in play. So can easily break boards. Also make a blocker if your opponent's been playing a lot of aerial creatures. Vulpikeet I'd probably say is the best common in white. There were many times where I was happily picking up 2 or 3 of them, like well over other cards. It's easily splashable at only 1 white and 1 white for the mutate. So it's just freaking solid. It was just very, very good. It completely outperforms the freaking uncommon one, which was gain 4 life. What a joke! So this card's way better, way, way better. Sorry, my nose is a little bit. Yeah, I feel like I got a bit of a cold actually, but I'm alright other than that. So yeah, that's sort of what I'd say what mattered about white, or all the white cards. I'll go on to the multi-card later on, but yeah, for the white cards, that's what I'd say. Roughly, that's what you're looking at. Vulpikeet is, again, as I said, probably my favourite card in white. But white has good options. White has good options. They fit better in other shells, though. White is not a good colour playing by itself. It's a very good support colour, and I don't think it plays very well if you want to make it your main colour, unless, of course, you pick up enough good stuff to allow you to do that. I have played decks that were primarily white, but they tend to rely on picking up a couple of white rares during the draft to really like focus on playing a white deck. But yeah, certainly serviceable. As I said, all the colours are playable in Ikoria, which makes it a good draft set. Now I got blue. Blue overall felt like the color of doing stuff your opponent doesn't want you to do. It might sound a little stupid, but I'll explain. Blue doesn't really have any chase creatures. It has a couple, but blue is not really the color you're going into for creatures in Ikoria, for the most part. Blue has good stuff like Essence Scatter, where given that Mutate has such a payoff in this set, people love to play creatures. Creatures are in fact probably the only threat you're having to counter, except perhaps an Ultimatum, but even then, creature superiority in draft is always good. So Essence Scatter, very nice, very nice. Also, the artwork of them turning into moths or birds or whatever is quite funny because it reminds me of Swan Song. But yeah, Essence Scatter, very, very good. I know Essence Scatter is normally like a pretty aggressively costed, solid counter spell for draft, but particularly in a draft where people are encouraged to play higher mana creatures or Mutate itself, bouncing doesn't stop Mutate like it normally would with other enchantments or enchantment-like effects. Essence Scatter will find a mark every single game. Every single game. Facet Reader is unassuming, but a excellent card advantage engine. Draw is not very good in Ikoria. It's fine, but it's not that great, which means looting effects like this are particularly potent. So, big plus for the Facet Reader. Glimmerbell seems not that important, but has some great synergies with certain Mutate cards. It's also it's an okay blocker. It's got like pseudo vigilance, but it has some synergies with some particular Mutate cards that make it absolutely insane. I will get to those, but not yet. Keep Safe is, I thought this card would be a lot better than it was, but honestly, it's a good one-off. I'd say it's a good one-off in some decks. But I also thought this card would be better in Standard, but it absolutely just doesn't do shiz. Target removal has just gone out the window, man. People just don't bother with it anymore. I'll explain what I mean by that, but yeah. Later on when I get onto the state of Standard after Ikoria, at least as far as I understand it. Mystic Subdual is fine. It's not bad. Not much to say about this. Some of the blue cards are a bit like, I don't mind including them a lot of the time, as opposed to being really good. Ominous Seas can straight up win you games. The only problem with Ominous Seas is that you need to get it early on. If not, you are cycling it, which makes it a little bit more appealing. You don't even need to play a deck that particularly draws lots of cards to make Ominous Seas good. You could just play it on turn 2 and then just wait until turn 10, just stall the game out, and then bam, you suddenly have yourself an 8/8. Yes, it's a token, so it can be bounced. Yes, it's a token, so there's other ways you can get rid of it. Oh, sorry about that. Just yawned in the middle of the video. Haha, should see me on stream. So yeah, remove 8 foreshadow counters, create an 8/8 Kraken. Yeah, this card's really good in draft. Especially since you can create those Krakens at instant speed, which means that you can say you can draw 2 cards during your opponent's turn when they declare attackers, and then create the Kraken and then block. That's a free kill. Or create it in your opponent's end step when they forget about the Ominous Seas. They just stop paying attention to it. Draw some cards, create a Kraken. Opponent has no blockers. Go for lethal. Ominous Seas, very, very good. It's a card that I don't mind picking up multiple copies of because of the cycling attached to it. Starting development, this actually overperformed a fair amount, as I was saying with the 4 toughness thing. This allowed blue to trade with things like the jellyfish or the Facet Reader, and some of your other low-cost cards. It allows you to trade with them, or actually, get free kills. It's a very good combat trick to be in blue, honestly. And another thing to note is that this makes the creature into a serpent. So if you cast this on a human, the human you can then mutate cards onto. Okay? It sounds odd, but it has come up in a couple of games where I'm like, oh crap, I don't really have any creatures. And my opponent will swing, I go, right, well, the least I can do is startling development to kill one of their creatures. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. I have a Pouncing Shore Shark in my hand, which is another blue card. I can mutate that onto this creature now that I've starting developmented it. It'll still be power 4/4, power toughness 4/4, or I just put the Shore Shark on top, and it's 4/3, and then it's like 2 mana. Your creature you can now mutate onto this creature, which turns it into a threat. Post mutate as well as the actual mutate effects themselves. So it's got cycling. So this card is very rarely bad. Treat it as a combat trick in blue, and it's a pretty good one. Convolute is solid. Counter spells in general in Ikoria are actually really good. People tend to be tapping sideways for big creatures, so counter spells are always nice. Playing conservatively is not too difficult to do in blue. If you play like a blue-white shell, it's actually pretty easy to play defensively. If you play Bant, I think Bant's probably the most defensive. You can also go Esper. Esper's got some quite good options for that. Basically, Esper's got more removal and Bant's got bigger creatures. So, but either way, they both play pretty similarly, and the Azorius shell works quite nicely. The counter spells are very, very solid. Frostlinks was okay. I think some people overpicked this a bit much. This is not a bad card. Don't get me wrong. It's not a bad card, but it's fine. You'll find me going over a lot of the blue cards and talking about them because a lot of the blue cards are playable. I'd say pretty much every card in blue, barring a few, are quite playable. Frostlinks isn't bad. It's just not that amazing. It can help. Again, it can help stall games out. Some decks will want it. Some decks won't. Of One Mind. I will point out, before anyone starts going on about the fact that it's a bad card when it isn't cost reduced, no. Divination is good in drafts, and anyone who says otherwise hasn't properly played draft very much. Sorry, that's just how it is. And the fact that this is a divination that can be reduced in cost makes this a card. This is like the premium card draw. I will happily pick up 2-3 copies of this during a draft. I think, well, 3 is probably a bit much, but yeah, I'll definitely pick up 2 of these. They are very, very good. Very, very good. If you need a couple of pieces of card draw in your deck to find threats, to just get over your lands, Of One Mind is really solid. And the cost reduction for it is pretty easy to achieve, honestly. Especially if you're in white, where most humans are. But there's a decent collection of humans in black, and there's Facet Reader, which is like a pickup in blue. So, oh dear me. But there you go. Phase Dolphin is again 4/4 toughness, but this thing also says that other attacking creatures can't be blocked, which pairs very well with Sea Dasher Octopus or the Thieving Otter, which are the deal combat damage, draw cards of the set. Both of them are 2/2s for 3. Octopus just has Flash and Mutate. It's more pushed because it is rare. That's basically how it is. But this pairs very well with either of these. In general, these 2 cards are very good if you can get certain keywords onto them, particularly flying or having a Phase Dolphin in play, but also just mutating bigger creatures on top of them, like things with trample or stuff like that. I didn't talk about the White Mentor because giving a creature vigilance is okay, but not that exciting. Obviously the ability to tap and put 1/1 counters on said creatures with key text is very good. But Wingspan Mentor is much, much better than the Keensight Mentor for white. And it's because you put flying. And again, giving something flying in this format, in this draft in particular, definitely feels like you're turning something into a threat. So Wingspan Mentor is very solid. Again, Avian Oddity is a cycling card that puts a counter on something. This does flying. Having a 2/4 is definitely not bad as a flyer. It's a good blocker, and it also has flying. But cycling to put flying counters on things is also very nice. So Avian Oddity is just great. Capture Sphere. Blue has a good piece of removal. A lot of people won't have main deck enchantment removal. Enchantment removal is quite good in Ikoria between Capture Sphere, Mystics of Duel, Pacifism, Deadweight, things like that. So the enchantment removal is actually quite important, and I would recommend main decking it if you can. Which is another reason for my draft advice that will come on a bit later. But yeah, Capture Sphere is good. Gust of Wind, I think this card is a bit overrated by people, but it's not bad. If you're playing quite a slow deck, this definitely works out. If you're playing a flying deck, you don't really need to gust your opponent's creatures because you'll be able to attack over the top of them. But it can be good to set them behind on tempo and gust some like more power, higher power creatures, so you can keep the flying beatdown rolling without worrying about getting killed on the crackback. So Gust has that utility to it, and it does cycle itself. It does say return target non-land permanent. So you can bounce your opponent's enchantments if they have a particularly good enchantment in play, or an artifact, or something like that. Mythos Faloona, again, it's a rare. Pretty much all the rares are bombs, as far as I'm concerned. Mythos Faloona is no exception. Reconnaissance Mission, this card is either bonkers or does nothing. And I think it all depends on how you build your deck. It works best in like very low to the ground Izzet decks, where you have abilities to put out lots of tokens. You can also play it in an Azorius shell where you play lots of 1, 2. You need a good curve. You've got to go 1, 2, 3 Reconnaissance Mission. If you can do that, this card will get value. Obviously, it's better on the play as well. I would rate this card very highly in certain shells. In other shells, it does quite literally nothing. So you have to be very careful when picking this card up that your deck actually supports it. And I'm not talking about just having a few flyers and hitting your opponent in the face. I'm saying this card is a payoff for having a low curve. That's what it is. This is a payoff card for a low curve. And having a high pressure deck with cheap removal or cheap like answers to your opponent. Like it's the kind of deck that doesn't really go above 4 mana. It keeps its threats low to the ground, and it has removal to back up anything that your opponent does manage to get past you, whilst you draw through your deck. So, yep. Heron is the other mutate card with flying. When this creature mutates, draw a card, so it replaces itself, which makes this card a pretty much an auto pick in most cases that you're in blue and you see creatures getting past. Because it replaces itself. If your opponent removes it, the only time it's bad is when your opponent counterspells it. Every other time, this card is always good. It replaces itself, or it creates a threat and replaces itself. So, yep, very solid card. Pouncing Shore Shark, fantastic combat trick. I found a lot of people use this card incorrectly. This card is a very aggressive card. A lot of people think this is really good for slowing the game down. No. This is the kind of card you want to slap on a creature after you've already established tempo, so you can keep going face. And on top of that, if you mutate other things on it behind the Shore Shark, you get to bounce more stuff. So it's a very good 1/2 card. So you have a creature in play, you pouncing Shore Shark at instant speed, you get a trade on your opponents and bounce on their creatures back. You now have the initiative. Or you swing with a creature, it gets double blocked, you mutate pouncing Shore Shark on it. You can now trade to kill one of those creatures, for example, and bounce the other blocker. So it's very good at winning you the initiative. And it's also going to put a pretty fast clock on your opponent as well at 4 power. And if you follow it, again, you play the Shore Shark onto a creature, you play another mutate onto that creature the next turn, you get to bounce potentially the same card. That's not It's certainly not unheard of in draft for your opponent to like just have to tap out and play the same creature again. If you can bounce it 2 turns in a row, you're getting up to 8 free damage on them, including other creatures you may have in play. And in many cases, that just means the game is over, since you'll have gone wider than them. They won't have very much to deal with it. Again, rare bomb, just good stuff. Boon of the Wishgiver. Now, this is an interesting card. I have included this and cast this in some decks. I will give it an honorary mention for now and go into it in a bit more detail when we look at some other cards further down the line. Rare Bomb, don't need to talk about it too much. Wingfold Terran. Now, this card is probably, I would say, it's a toss-up. Okay, I'm going to talk about both these cards, Archipelago and Wingfold Terran. These two cards are the two cards that, well, I suppose Dreamtail Heron as well. This is a good chase card because it's common. But these are the sort of two main cards that give blue its real power. And you might be thinking, but the Terran's only a 3/6. Yes, but it's also got Hexproof, and Hexproof in draft is always really good. And considering it has 6 toughness, Wingfold Terran is going to block literally anything forever. And it also, you have the option of giving it flying. You can mutate onto this, so you can play the Terran with Hexproof and then put something else over the top or underneath it. Which means that yeah, it's one of those cards that it can completely just win matches by itself with clever play. However, there's also Archipelago, which is blue's biggest threat, and it's a scaling mutate. There are certain cards with scaling mutate. The white one, I can't remember what the white one is. Probably unexciting. But Archipelago is insane. This is basically you mutate a 7/7 onto a creature, and it gets a Frostlinks effect, where it taps a creature and that creature doesn't untap, which means that this is then going to be able to swing through and get some trades, or just deal damage to face. It scales in the sense that the more a creature has mutated, the more things you tap. Which means if you can mutate this onto a creature, and then the following turn you can mutate again, then you're going to have tapped out 3 of your opponent's creatures, and chances are they're being forced to trade very unfavorably with you. So Archipelago is always forcing unfavorable trades. At the very worst, it goes 1-for-1. At the very worst. But in most cases, this forces your opponent to play very awkwardly around it. It's not something your opponent can necessarily expect either, because it is a very expensive creature, and if you've had a sort of... If you want to play this card as like a one-off, as a big payoff in your deck, even if you don't run very much mutate, this card is very, very solid. This could be your only mutate card in your deck, and it would still pay off very much. So, yep. As you can see, as I said, I forgot to talk about Crustacean. This is probably the one high toughness creature I don't rate very highly, because it's too slow at 4 mana. Yes, it's got flash, but it's too slow at 4 mana. You need them out on turn 2 and 3, which is why the ones I previously mentioned, like the main Serval, are much better. Format is very much if you don't have stuff down turn 1, 2, and 3, you will get outpaced in Ikoria. It's quite fast in that respect, but it's also easy to stall games out as long as you play the curve correctly. So depending on how your deck is built, you can be either very quick or very slow. As I said, blue is a very solid color. Very solid. It doesn't have bad cards per se, so can't really complain about blue. That's why I said it's quite a good color to be in, because it just works. It just works most of the time. I wouldn't say it's a color you would main. There isn't enough creatures. There's not enough creatures in blue to really keep the board down to play mono blue. But blue as a secondary color in your deck is very good. So we've established white blue, very nice color combo for playing a Dirtly sort of game. White provides the creatures, blue provides the Dirtle. But white's also got some removal that makes it good for that archetype. But yeah, blue is a support color in the set. Blue is a support color, but a very good one. So yeah, white and blue I'd say are support colors. Weirdly enough, white and blue can support each other, which makes for quite a nice shell. But generally, they're the sort of colors you want to be including with other decks, not making your mainstay of a deck. Though there are circumstances, of course. Depends what you get past. Anyway, moving on to black. Black has a lot of stuff to offer many different archetypes. A lot of good stuff. Black has all the answers to the really scary stuff in the set. And also has a lot of scary stuff as well. So black is a color that can play very well by itself. So let's get started. Deadweight has saved my ass in games by just keeping a creature that I would otherwise wouldn't be able to handle down 2 points of power, and it actually makes it dealable. So do not underestimate Deadweight. Deadweight can be also mutate doesn't like add the creature's stats up. It's just whatever's on top. So it could punish people for playing too greedy onto a mutate stack, especially if the mutate stack is more inconsequential sort of effects as opposed to like +1/+1 counters. But even if it's +1/+1 counters, it can help keep that creature out of threat range for a little bit longer. So Deadweight's good. Mutual Destruction. Bone Splinter is fine. I don't think I have a huge amount to say about Mutual Destruction or Bone Splinters in general. This card is a good one of if you're hard up for removal. It will normally save you. Trading a creature that no longer has a purpose on the board with a creature that your opponent just played that will absolutely kick your ass. This can have flash, assuming you have other flash permanents, which there are a few pretty good flash permanents. There's not like loads, but so this is normally going to be sorcery speed, and trying to build a deck around this having flash is kind of janky, so I won't worry about that. Just treat this as a Bone Splinters. But it's good. It's good. There's some big people tend to play pretty Timmy cards in their Ikoria decks. You'll see at least 3 or 4. So Bone Splinters is a good answer to at least one of them. So yeah, props to this card. I won't go over Scorpion. Scorpion's yeah, it's just filler, Whisper Squad. This guy definitely deserves a mention. As I said with White, if you pick up the human anthem. People tend to pass these guys. If your first pick is one of the human anthems, then this is your highest priority pick. This is your highest priority pick. Whisper Squad is fantastic. A card which filters for other copies of itself in draft is very nice, especially in a tribal format, where if you're playing humans, you're suddenly filtering your deck for a bunch of 2/2s, which doesn't sound impressive, but when it comes down to, multiple blocks or going wide, these guys kick ass, and spending your mana to take cards directly out of your deck allows you to keep your hand size up, which means whilst your opponent's burning out the cards in their hand and being forced to top deck, you're filtering cards that you don't want to draw out of your deck and getting them straight into play. These guys also act as great chump cards and also sacrifice fodder. So you can, if you pick up 2 or 3 of them during a draft, they can fit in other black archetypes as well. But in humans, they're particularly good, and they should be an instant pick. They're common, so I have had decks where I've picked up 5 of them. I've also had decks where I try to draft as many as I can, and I only pick up 2. So take it with a pinch of salt. Like sometimes someone else will be hoovering them up. But yeah, they're very, very good, very good. Boot Nipper. In many cases, this is a Death Touch creature. It's just 2/1 with Death Touch. Sometimes you will use it for the lifelink, so it's nice to have that sort of modal option. But yeah, it's a fine card. It is a fine card. This tends to keep your opponent off swinging at you with certain dangerous stuff. I will just say, I will bring up Callbug quickly. I overestimated the usefulness of Callbug. In some archetypes, you want 1 and only 1. But it's not that good. In the very latest game scenarios, this card can provide a value engine, which will give you an advantage, either by being a chump blocker for 7 mana every turn, or you have the ability to sacrifice it to draw cards and gain life with another card in the set. Or use things like Bone Splinters and stuff. It's fine, but most times you'll finish your games without ever replaying this card. Now that isn't to say playing a 2/2 for 2 is the worst thing in the world. A generic Grizzly Bear isn't the worst thing. It's not great, but it's fine. It's fine. But don't overvalue this card. It's at best a one-of in some decks. In other decks, just won't want to play it, even if they're in black. Easy Prey, removal, which also has cycling attached to it. Do not underestimate the fact that it says destroy target creature with CMC cost 2 or less. Some of the most irritating cards in the set, or cards that provide value, are CMC 2. This is a very classic Bolt the Bird as well, because a lot of the dorks that produce mana are 2 mana. So getting rid of them on curve can make all the difference. So yeah, don't ignore Easy Prey. And you can cycle it. And if you're against a deck that just has no 2 mana cards you care about, Easy Prey can be sideboarded out for something else. So feels good. Heartless Act. I don't think I drafted this at all. This is insane removal. It's instant speed, just destroy target creature. Pretty much all the time. The remove up to 3 target creatures counters from target creature. That can be irritating, and there'll sometimes be situations where you will not be able to kill a creature because it has counters on it. And this includes the lifelink, trample, blah 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 counters, the keyword counters. It does include those, since it doesn't say remove up to 3 +1/+1 counters. So that can be a problem. Sometimes, though, it will remove counters that will otherwise be very problematic during blocks or attacks. And in that case, yeah, it's perfectly fine. So Heartless Act, top tier removal for the most part. Unlikely Aid, this card I really like. Very, very solid. Probably one of the best combat tricks in the set. At least the indestructible part of it is very, very good. And the fact that it boosts power more than toughness makes it it's just like perfectly statted to be useful whenever you play it. So I will say, if you can, pick up a copy of this if you're in black, because this is the combat trick which will always pay dividends. Always. So yeah, recommend. Bastion of Remembrance. This is a card that you don't necessarily need to play in humans. It makes you think of playing humans because it creates 1/1 white human soldier tokens. You do not need to make humans to make this a good card. Bastion of Remembrance is very solid. Very solid. I have won games off this very easily. It's a very, very good aristocrat effect, and it also... It's not just an aristocrat effect. It's a incentive for your opponent not to attack you with creatures that aren't going to be pushing that much damage. You know, do I want to swing with a creature for 3 when my opponent could trade 2 of their creatures into it, and like they could trade the token that they create off this and one of their other creatures on board to kill my creature, and I'm not pushing that much damage anyway, so I'll just wait until I pull a bigger creature. So it can incentivize people not to attack you. It acts as a very good roadblock. So very, very solid card. Call of the Death Dweller. This card was kind of bad, actually. I think a lot of people got tricked into thinking this card was really good. In certain archetypes, it's fine, with a lot of like 1 and 2 drop creatures. But honestly, I think Call of Death Dweller is not that great. Not that great, at least with the Ikoria's cards. If you build a deck around this and say standard or whatever, it's a lot better. But yeah, this is not a particularly great card. When you get to the real crux of it. I had many times where this would return 1 creature. Sometimes all it needs to do is return 1 creature. 3 mana, return a creature from the bin to the battlefield. It is not terrible. It's not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. It's like Revival Revenge. Revival was pretty good as a card. But don't expect this card to like super overperform. It's okay. Like that's more of a warning as opposed to saying the card's good. Lifelink counters are surprisingly useful, actually. My opinion of the Lifelink Mentor is that it is a lot cheaper for the Lifelink Mentor to put counters on things, which is a advantage in and of itself. And the lifelink means that you can swing a lot more aggressively. So Dustfang Mentor is fine. It's not the most powerful Mentor, but it's pretty good. It's definitely better than the Vigilance Mentor, because lifelink kind of acts like Vigilance in the sense that you don't need to block the card on the crackback because you're gaining life, so that you don't need to declare blocks. But also can act as a good blocker and give you life. So there you go. Pangolin, primo card, just a 1/5. But as I said, 4 toughness is primo in this set. Same goes for 5 toughness. It doesn't do anything, but you can mutate onto it. So if you've got good payoff cards for mutate, Glue Pangolin can make use of them. But it's pretty decent. It's definitely pretty decent. Grim Dancer is a very solid 3-drop. 3/3 for 3 is very, very good. Tends to be you want to give it Menace Death Touch. In which case that your opponent is not going to be able to... Yeah, most players won't be able to go 1-for-1 with this, which is what makes it so powerful at uncommon. Or you can give it lifelink. So it has the added ability that if you draw it late game, you could just give it Death Touch lifelink, and your opponent is kind of, if they are swinging with a big creature, they're forced to trade it into this. So it's got that sort of dual purpose. Again, rares I'm not going to talk about. They were almost exclusively just really, really good. So the rares across the board just really good. We're going to skip a few cards now because I wasn't too interested by them. But Blood Curdle, 4 mana, instant speed, destroy target creature. So it's a bit more expensive than Murder, but it is only 1 black, so that's nice. It also adds a menace counter onto a creature you control. So, yep. Again, removal is good. This is instant speed removal. Instant speed removal is better. And also upside for the fact that it costs a little bit more to cast. But yes, never ignore your removal. So that's these. This is the sacrifice card that draws cards in this set. Seems to be one in every set these days. Bushmeat Poacher is pretty decent. Note that they have a stat line that makes them a good blocker. They are a human. They're not too expensive. They're common. And it's only pay 1, tap, sack another creature. You gain life equal to the creature's toughness, which I have survived attacks on that. Especially since you could declare that creature as a blocker and then sack it. It cannot sack itself, keep in mind. So Bushmeat Poacher is pretty useless if it's the only card on the board. But if you're playing this in your deck, you probably should have plenty of extra creatures to throw away if you need to. But yeah, you also draw a card. So valuable life gain, valuable card draw can turn your redundant creatures on board into actual useful stuff. So, yep. Solid. Next we have Dark Bargain. Don't like to play more than one of in decks. So yeah, don't like to take more than one. But very good. Otherwise, it's just a very good card. Look at top 3, draw 2. So, scry 3, draw 2. The other one goes to the bin. Doesn't matter, it goes to the bin. It's instant speed. That's probably its biggest value, is that it's an instant speed draw. So you can hold up 4 mana, i.e. Blood Curdle, or other instant speed tricks or removal. And if your opponent doesn't do anything that you're worried about, you can just Dark Bargain. So solid. Hemophage is the scaling mutate in black. And honestly, I don't really care about the fact that it has a scaling mutate effect. At most times, this thing is going to maybe Lightning Helix your opponent's face, which is fine. What you do care about with this card is that it gives a creature 3/3 in Death Touch, or, you know, it is a 3/3 with Death Touch that you can then mutate something else onto. For example, Flying, or Menace, or things like that. Menace is pretty big in black for this format. Flying comes in other colors. But yeah, 3/3 Death Touch. The stat line's a bit weird for a Death Touch creature, but as I said, it's like you want to mutate this onto stuff to give it Death Touch, and there's a couple of cards that are particularly good if you mutate Death Touch onto them. So yeah, but anything with Menace obviously benefits a lot from Death Touch, and it's got a little upside to mutating. So good keyword is fine. Lurking Deadeye. I think a lot of people underestimate this card or cards like this. For a start, it's human, so it fits in the human sort of archetype. A 4-mana 4/2 with Flash. That basically makes it a piece of removal in many cases. So yes, this card will, in many cases, get value. Get a lot of value. Not only that, but it has the upside that it can also destroy target creature that was dealt damage this turn. Works very well with First Strike. Works very well post-combat to then push damage post-combat. Chumping things with 1/1s and then getting a Lurking Deadeye. Very good. But I think people underestimate this card and think that it's only good if it gets the ETB effect. No, this card can just be used as a piece of removal and is not bad. So do not underestimate this card. In many cases, this is always good to run. And in some cases, it's 2-for-1, which makes it even better. So there you go. Cavern Whisperer is one of the better mutate cards in black, and it's the sort of mutate card you put on top of your creatures. Because it's a 4/4 with Menace stat line. Very, very nice. And when it mutates, each opponent discards a card. So this card, in almost all cases, goes 2 for 1. When it doesn't, it's either eating a counter spell, which is kind of bad, but or you top decked it and your opponent's top decking. In which case, you can probably just play it as a 4/4 with Menace, which makes it a good threat because if your opponent hasn't got enough blockers, this thing's going to go through, get damage in. So this is as a common, this is a very nice, not even necessarily a curve topper, because a lot of the time you can mutate this onto cheaper creatures to just force your opponent to discard their cards. So yeah, it's not so necessarily a curve topper, but a good curve target for turn 4, and otherwise is fine in the top deck scenarios. So very good. Unbreakable Bond. This is one of the only whatchamacallits graveyard recursion cards in the set. There is another one which is much better, but this one is most certainly not that bad. It is a it's Call from the Grave or Rise from the Grave or whatever. It's fine. It also gives lifelink as well, so you know. Certain decks will make a lot better use of this, and I will say that as a card, it is uncommon, so you're not always going to have a copy. But if you add it with cards that have cycling, particularly the coloured cycling cards, the coloured cycling cards in both black and green are freaking huge, as you can see here. 8/8. If you cycle them and then later on intend to get them back with this, it can be incredibly good value. In fact, you can get them well above curve. I have had games that are decided by me getting an 11/11 with Trampler out on turn 5, which is unsurprising because if your opponent has no answer to it, you win the game. So this is definitely a card that fits very nicely in conjunction with other cards, but is also by no means terrible. It's not terrible by itself, but your deck really has to have some payoffs to support it because it can't target your opponent's graveyard. It can only target your graveyard. So, you gotta have the right cards to make this work. Bleats Lich, which what we affectionately started calling this card after I butchered its name the first time I tried to pronounce it, just because I was just having a moment. Bleats Lich is fine. In many cases, this card will be a 2 for 1, or in other cases, it will just trade with literally anything in the format, more or less. Or at least allow you to trade with anything in the format. So it's an expensive piece of removal, but it can be a 2 for 1 piece of removal that your opponent isn't expecting. It can also be the kind of card that you play when you declare attacks and your opponent does a trick that you weren't expecting. So it's pretty good for those situations. I probably wouldn't run more than one, but it's not a bad card. It's certainly fine. Next we have the Cheering Harvester, which is black's premium mutate card, and is probably also what I'd call the best card in black, at least at the uncommon and common slots. This card will single-handedly win you games. It will, if it resolves, it will force your opponent to sack a creature. If it resolves and then you mutate onto it again, your opponent has to sack a second creature, and then it's basically game over. 5 mana for 4/6 worth of stats is not bad either. Like, it's a good stat line. There are a few creatures with 6 power. So Cheering Harvester is also going to act as an incredible blocker. Or you just play it out as a 4/6, 4/6. Which is not great, but it's tough to deal with. And that's important for a number of reasons. It gives you time to find something else to mutate onto it, for example. So Cheering Harvester is what I'd say is probably the best card in black. As a curve topper, as a card in general. Forcing your opponent's sacrifice means they can't really dodge it with anything. And if your opponent's quite greedy in the fact that they try to get a large mutate stack going, and you've gone a bit wider, Harvester can indeed just shut that down. So really solid card. And finally we've got Spacegodzilla. I don't want to say this is the most powerful card, because whilst it does have the biggest stats, it doesn't have the biggest impact. It is a nice combat trick though. 3 mana to cycle it and give a creature Death Touch. Doesn't sound like it's that great, but the fact is that you can include this as a late game threat in your deck, which you don't have to count towards your card count. What I mean by that is obviously you should still adhere to pretty standard deck building norms, but cards with cycling can be of a higher mana cost, and you don't feel so bad about your deck being weighted towards the higher mana cost, because worst comes to worst, you cycle it, you get a trade with it, and you replace it. Also good in the Reanimator style decks. But as a creature, 8 mana for an 8/8 with Death Touch. Death Touch is kind of irrelevant with this, except for cutting down your opponent's board, because they'll either have to, by the time this comes onto the board, chances are your opponent will have creatures to block it. It might trade 2 creatures, but then 2 for 1 in your opponent is always good. You can never complain about that. So it's a very solid card. Cycling for Death Touch is less 2 for 1ing, unless you've got like a Pangolin, Gloom Pangolin or something, and you cycle or give Death Touch to that, then it's a 1/5 with Death Touch, which makes it just like the most annoying blocker on the universe. So yeah, Spacegodzilla is good. It's one of the better cycling give keyword ones. I'd say flying is probably at the top of my list. But I'd say this comes third, probably after First Strike, but it's pretty close for First Strike. I'm not sure which one I prefer more. So yeah, it's sort of a toss-up between those two, but they're both very good. So yeah, that's black. As you can probably tell, black's got some pretty good stuff going for it. A lot of decent creatures. It's got lots of support for various different archetypes. It's got good removal. And it has playable creatures across the curve. There are some I didn't mention because they're like okay curve fillers that you could probably find better creatures in other colors in that slot, or just other cards. But as a whole, black is one of those cards that one of those colors that I think in Ikoria is a good base. Ikoria black is a good base to play to build a deck around, whether you're playing Esper or Abzan or Jund. I probably wouldn't recommend Jund, but just as an example. Generally speaking, you want to be using either white or blue as a support color, and then one of these as the main colors to back them up. But yeah, Abzan works particularly well. Esper works pretty good. You can also play Dimir or something like Grixis. Grixis went quite decently. Or Teema. Not Teema. What am I trying to think of? Assaulti. That's what I'm trying to think of. I was just like, blue, black, and green. What is that? Have been playing Assaulti deck since since I started playing standard, really. But yeah, Sultai. Sultai is also pretty good. So black's a very nice base color to include with either white or blue, and then some other stuff if you feel like splashing on top of it. But yeah, black is a good base color. It's got combat tricks. It's got removal. It's got cards that both inform and create strategies, as well as having a great creature lineup. So yeah, black is definitely a color to be in. It also has a one-sided board wipe in it if you're lucky enough to pull that. For those of you that are like, yeah, but sometimes you'll have odd or even creatures. Yes, but if I have to exile one creature I don't really care too much about, and I get to exile 3 of my opponent's creatures, it's a one-sided board wipe. So Extinction Event is very, very good. Batcher is very, very good. Like I said, the rares across the board tend to be really pushed in Ikoria, and more or less all of them are pretty bomb-like. But yeah, Extinction Event and Bachelor are sort of really good. Mythos and Nether is really good. Hunter Nightmare is really good. So there's just tons of great cards in black. So black is a highly rated color, very very good base color to have. Now red is an interesting one. Mostly because I am a bit here and there about red. I'm not sure whether to call it a base color or a support color. I think I'm more on the boat that it's a support color that can be used as a base color if you really have to. But I feel like it's more of a support color in the set. But let's go over the cards. The first page of cards, I will make an honorary mention to Heightened Reflexes, a combat trick that gives a creature +1/+0 and puts a first strike counter on it for 1 red. In certain decks that have lots of high power creatures, this can be absolutely fantastic, or creatures with Death Touch, like if you're playing black. Heightened Reflexes can be really, really good. It's a bit low impact unless you've got the right creatures to support it, because all you're doing is going, it would be nice if that creature had first strike, for the most part. The +1/+0 is kind of irrelevant. You can use it to maybe force a trade that your opponent otherwise wouldn't be able to make. But yes, it's in most cases, this card is going to be, I would like that creature to have first strike, which is all it needs to do, really. And in some cases, oh, sorry, I just knocked my mic a little bit. If it goes a little fuzzy, sometimes my mic will go fuzzy if I accidentally knock it. Oh dear, can't really help that at times. Anyway, yeah, you'll be able to tell if your deck has creatures that can make use of first strike. So there you go. Weaponize the monsters. I have actually lost games to people using this, but this is a card you definitely have to build around. You need a very low curve. You need aristocrat style effects, other ones to back it up anyway, and you need to be able to pump tokens out. But this can single-handedly win games. So what do I think about that? A build-around card. A build-around card, certainly, but not a bad one. Also lets you cash in creatures before removal resolves and that sort of thing, so not that bad. Cathartic Reunion, a fine one of in certain decks that need that. Against other decks, maybe not so much, but yeah, it's a fine one-off to draw cards with. Get rid of some excess lands you no longer need, and then just roll them out. Drana Stinger is a cycling card that you want to play, not to cycle, but this is a very good one. Whereas Snare Tactician lets you push actual combat damage, Drana Stinger can close games out over a longer period of time, or if you've got 2 Drana Stingers, over a very short period of time. And can just make it very favourable. You can force your opponent to play very defensively, because they'll not have sufficient blockers if they were to swing, even though it's just a 2/2. If you're constantly threatening increasing damage to their straight to their face, then they have to pay attention to what's on board a little bit more. Next we have, oh, there we go. Oh, apparently my mouse wheel doesn't want to work. There we go. Probably fixed it now. Yeah, there we go. Fire Prophecy. It's a bolt that can also draw you a card if you want. Very nice. Very nice. Solid card. Don't need to say too much about a card that bolts in draft. Forbidden Friendship creates 2 tokens. One is a human, one is a dinosaur. This is important because token creation works in a number of decks. We've got Aristocrats it works in. It works with the Reconnaissance Mission, which is the blue card we showed off that draws cards when you deal combat damage. It creates a human and a dinosaur, so it's good for Of One Mind, which is another blue card. And what was the other one? It's also a case of the tokens, one of them's a dinosaur, so you can mutate onto, and the human soldier token can benefit off of human synergies in the deck, or just be chump. Most of the cases, the human soldier is a chump token, and the other token is for mutating. But yeah, this works very well in Izzet shells for the most part. But this is not a bad card at all. Giving you two creatures, one of which has haste, so you can get a little bit of damage in with it as well. So it's not a bad card. I rate Forbidden Friendship pretty well. It's pretty good. Go for Blood, red fight card. They're also cycling. A lot of people tend to put this in the cycling deck and then never fight anything with it, which I find really, really silly. But yeah, you could just this is good because it you know, it's a fight card and it's in red, and red doesn't always get lots of options for fight. So this can be really, really good. It just in general, and it's very rarely bad because it has cycling. So yeah, solid. Raking Claws. I see everybody run this in the cycling decks and never use it. I don't see many other decks use this, but 2 mana give a creature double strike. This is a great card. This can either give you trades when otherwise that creature would be totally out of range, or it can allow you to push a ton of damage, or get you a free, or just go 1 for 1. Just give a creature first strike for a turn. I think it's because it doesn't give counters. And because it doesn't give counters, people have been avoiding using this card as anything but a cycling card. But I think double strike is definitely nothing to sniff up at. And on certain creatures, it just straight up wins the game. Your opponent goes, "Oh, I don't need to block that." There's no way that they can push like 6 damage out of their hand. Gives the creature double strike. Oh dear, like, yep, it can be as simple as that. So, Raking Claws is actually quite good. Shredded Sails is another sort of card that's got 2 separate options: destroy target artifact, or just deal 4 damage to target creature with flying. Both of those pretty good. Both of those effects are not bad. The artifact one is going to be less relevant, but sometimes it comes up. But dealing 4 damage to target creature with flying is very nice to have some anti-flying cards in red, and it cycles for 2. So this is a card I normally include in my sideboard, but it is very rarely dead when it is played from the sideboard or in the main deck. So just a pretty solid card. Don't feel bad about this most of the time. Flame Spill. I didn't actually pick this up very often. It is uncommon. It's a 3 mana, deal 4 damage to target creature at instant speed. It's kind of like the Blazing Flames from whatchamacallit. It's not called Blazing Flames, but the Ardent spell from Eldraine for red that dealt 3, or it dealt 4 if you adamented it. Yeah, I call it Ardent, but it's adamant. However, this one always deals 4. And excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller instead. So this could be useful to push extra damage post-combat. It can be useful to you can push damage. Like you can hit creatures that are normally, you feel bad if you're like, oh, I don't want to waste 2 points of damage on my piece of removal. This never wastes points of damage. And a 4 damage spell is very, very welcome. So it's a very good card. Frill Scare Mentor is the Menace Mentor. I don't think Menace was that relevant, at least in red. What I mean is that the Frill Scare Mentor works much better when it's buffing creatures in other colors. Not so great when it's buffing creatures in red. But yeah, in other colors, it's much better. So I'll say as a support mentor, it is decent, particularly with Death Touch again, because it's like if with Death Touch you're forcing at least 2 creatures to die. So Marmoset was a great payoff for the cycling deck. There are a couple of cards that are very good payoffs for the cycling deck. Prickly Marmoset is one of them. It can push so much damage or play as a defensive creature. It does both. This card is very, very good, especially with multiple ones in play. But even if you don't play a cycling deck, a 3 mana 2/3 with First Strike, it can make a decent blocker. It's a decent recipient for combat tricks. You can also mutate onto it, which then gives you a First Strike onto a creature, a bigger creature potentially. So Marmoset is very rarely bad. Very rarely bad. I will talk about. Whoops, went a bit far. I will talk about Reptilian Reflection briefly. This card is supposed to be a payoff for cycling. It's quite a good payoff for cycling, but you need to be playing a very cycling heavy deck, since this is one of the creatures, quote unquote, that you will be playing down onto the board. It's quite good though. It's certainly quite good. 5 power with trample and haste. Can push a lot of damage, and it has 4 toughness, and as I said, 4 toughness is the magic number. This card will trade with plenty of things in the set at a 2-for-1 because of its 4 toughness and 5 power. Sometimes it will kill one creature, and then it will get chumped by 2 things, and it will just be able to kill the one. Sometimes that does happen, but you can also use it as a defensive card. You can have this on board, and if your opponent swings, they have to accept that you can cycle a card out for 1 and create a 5/4 blocker. So very good in the cycling deck, but you have to be quite all in on cycling to make it work. Spell Eater Wolverine, 3 mana 3/2. As long as there are 3 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, it has double strike. This is a premium card to mutate things like flying onto, or other good stuff. Particularly like Vulpikeet, because that puts counters on it, so it becomes a 4 mana double striker with flying, which is fantastic. Although it can work very well as just a creature that punches things on the ground, because 3 power with First Strike will kill plenty of stuff in the set. 3 power with Double Strike kills everything else in the set, more or less. So this is definitely a card that's very rarely going to go 1-for-1. And if it does, you're probably still getting value out of it. So a very solid include in most decks. Whether they're heavy on spells or not, even just a 3 mana 3/2 is not the worst deal in the world. So, again, if it goes 1-for-1, it probably isn't the worst deal. So yeah, a fine card, fine indeed. Rare, so bomb. As I said, the rares are just bombs. I don't really need to talk about them too much. If you see them, pick them up. Ferocious Tigerilla. This card is interesting. It can get trample or menace. Now, what I've found is that Tigerilla is a filler card. However, it plays very well in the menace and or trample tribes, because there are certain cards in hybrid mana that benefit certain tribes, and by that I mean they're like keyword tribes. They're like keyword lords. And Tigerilla fits well in decks that have those. Otherwise, it's kind of unexciting. At only 3 toughness, it will probably just be going 1-for-1. But you can force your opponent to constantly be blocking you, which is quite... If you're playing quite a I'm just going to keep my opponent off the board kind of red deck, yeah, Tigerilla can be fine. But again, it works best in decks which utilize the sort of tribal keyword mechanics. Momentum Rumbler is great. 4 mana 3/3. Whenever it attacks, if it doesn't have First Strike, put a First Strike counter on it. So then it will have permanent First Strike if you want to use it as a blocker. Or when it attacks, if it has First Strike, it gains Double Strike until end of turn. A great recipient for Mutate. And also a good recipient for combat tricks. This is much like the Spell Eater Wolverine, but its activation is less based on what cards you've played. It's just always good. So it's another card that's always good. Very rare that you'll find Momentum Rumbler is bad in your deck. The only time it's bad is if your opponent gets, for example, a 4 toughness creature out, or a couple of them. then your first strike's not going to do anything, and your Momentum Rumbler could get killed. But once it gets double strike, you know, the 4 toughness creature will only block it once, because once it gets double strike, it will then trade. So it's definitely a card that will get out of hand if your opponent doesn't have the right kind of creatures to block it. Sorry, I think I'm really getting a cold. Probably not the best day to do a set review, but I got to do it at some point, so I might as well get it done before it kind of like rolls over, if you know. I've got all my VODs I need to work on as well. Anyway, Porcupine, we got rare bomb. Porcupine. This card mutates for 3. And then taps. This creature deals X damage to any target where X is the number of times this creature is mutated. Why is this card good? Because if you get... this also doesn't need to mutate. Well, it needs to mutate to do any damage with its tap. But it doesn't need to mutate to then put something else on it, so you could play it as a 3/4 and then mutate something on the back of it. But what I'll say about Porcupine is that it has combo potential to be overpowered. If you can give it Death Touch, yes, because then it becomes because it's this creature, so Porcupine is the source of the damage. If Porcupine has Death Touch, it only needs to deal 1 damage to instant kill anything in the draft, which can make for some nice dirtly combo decks, like in a Grixis Shell where you play blue and black to like stall the game out, mutate Porcupine onto something with Death Touch, and now your opponent is not allowed to have creatures. Which is a good way to win draft. If your opponent can't have creatures, then chances are you're probably winning the draft. So there you go. What else is there? Let's say you play Glimmerbell, the blue creature that untaps itself. That means you can get multiple activations out of Porcupine. At first, I thought this card was a total trap, because you don't want to be mutating this onto a creature and mutating loads and loads of other cards onto the back of it just to ping stuff out. But with the right cards, you don't need to do that. You just need to mutate it onto something once. It just needs to be able to ping for 1. And if you mutate it onto the right cards, or you can give it the right keywords, lifelink as well, it can gain you life then. If you can give it the right keywords, this is an absolutely amazing card, but it does need to, you do need to like build around that, really. 1 second. There we go. Alright, so yeah, Porcupine, solid as build around. Pyroceratops, I'm going to say right now, is a trap. This card, cards like this in previous sets, like in War of the Spark, was really good. But in War of the Spark, we had tons of Planeswalkers we could play. In Ikoria, it's much more creature heavy set, which means, yeah. So yeah, Pyroceratops is much less interesting than the previous sets, put +1/+1 counters on it. I tried to make this work in so many different decks, and it just never did. So I'm going to call this a trap card, and please don't pick it up, because it just... I played a lot of draft, and this just never worked out whenever I took it. No matter what archetype I played it in, whether I was like, incidentally I'm casting non-creature spells, I've got plenty of artifacts, or I've got plenty of enchantments, or, you know, I've got tons and tons of instants and sorceries. This card just never worked out. It just didn't. So, shrug, I guess. Maybe I have terrible luck with it, but yeah, personal experience, you know. So yeah, I'm just gonna call it a trap card. Rumbling Rockslide, 4 mana, deal damage to target creature equal to the number of lands you control. Now this card is a great piece of removal in red. The reason why is because red often has problems dealing with creatures with huge stats. This deals damage equal to the number of lands you control, which means on turn 4, which is when you're playing this, it deals 4 damage. On turn 9, it might deal 7 damage, or 8 damage, or on turn 15, it might just deal 13 damage, which you might be like, well, that's ridiculous. You're never going to need 13 damage. Well, Titanoth Rex is an 11/11, so if your only answer is to get a big enough rumbling rock slide to kill it, that's what you got to do. So yeah, do not underestimate this card. This card kills everything in the set. By virtue of its text, it kills everything in the set. So this is, but because of that, it makes it a very good piece of removal. So yeah, and removal is always good. Clash of Titans. Now, I actually misread this card the first time I played it, or not the first time I played it, but the first time I evaluated it when the cards are being spoiled. It's 5 mana instant speed for a fight card, right? And I thought, why would you want 5 mana instant speed fight? Like, I mean, that's way overcosted for fight. And then you reread it, and it says target creature fights another target creature. And you're like, yeah, it's just a fight card. Target creature fights another target creature. Now, that's what confused me, because when you look at other fight cards, it's target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. So obviously my magic brain was like, well, that's what fight cards do, right? Fight cards are my creature fight their creature. No, Clash of Titans lets you make your opponent's creatures fight each other, which is why this card became very, very good. But only a one-off. It's too expensive. It's too expensive and too niche to run. Or not niche, but after a while it won't find targets. So Clash of Titans is one of those cards that you can cast after blocks. You can cast it during blocks being declared. You can cast it on your opponent's turn, just casually. Or after they've swung with their creatures. Clash of Titans is very good. It could deal with problematic creatures, and in a pinch, you can use it to get one of your own creatures to fight one of theirs, if you want. So yeah, that's how it is. But yeah, Clash of Titans is a pretty good piece of removal. It can easily 2-for-1 your opponent, so nice. Cloud Piercer. This is one of the few cards with reach, and it's also got mutate. So mutate, good stat line, reach. So this is one of the few cards that can deal with rampant flyers. So I do like it very much. Its actual mutate effect of you may discard to draw a card. Who cares for the most part? I certainly didn't care for the most part. It basically replaces itself if you have excess land. If you've got excess lands, it can replace itself. But the reach is much more important. A fine card for the sideboard if you really need it, but perfectly main deckable as well. Works particularly well on the Wolverine, which can get double strike. If you can get double strike on the Wolverine after putting a Cloud Piercer on it, it hits for 10 every turn, which, as you can imagine, ends games quite quickly. Moloch is a good card for the cycling deck, but not like amazing. It's like a curve topper for the cycling deck. It's not amazing, but it's fine. That's how I'll call that. It can get Drana Stinger back or something. Or it can get Lava Serpent, which is probably one of the better options, but it's fine. It's a fine card. Like the two cycling cards in red at the higher end of the scale are fine. They're not bad. So yeah, Lava Serpent is pretty decent. Five with haste for 6. You can cycle it, and this card plays things with cycling, or allows you to play things that are in your graveyard with cycling. So they both have cycling, so you know if you find yourself running low on options, you can always cycle them to try and find an answer, or just get more land. So yeah, pretty solid. Oh dear. Oh dearie me. Hope this cold won't kill me. Sanctuary Smasher is 6 mana for a 6/4 with cycling. So this is the keyword cycling card. It gives first strike, it's very expensive to just give First Strike for 3 mana, right? However, as an actual creature, it rocks. First Strike on a 6 power creature is no joke. Absolutely no joke. So, yeah. Sanctuary Smasher, I am very, very much... I think this is a very nice card. Very nice card. For red. Very good curve topper. And it also has the added benefit of, if you find a good time to cycle it. No reason not to. And could be good in Reanimate as well. So that's red. As I said, I'm not sure if it's a support or a base color. It has a lot of cards that work well in other archetypes, but are also quite fine as standalone cards. So I find it really hard to place red. Again, all the colors are playable, some in different ways. Red is proving the hardest for me to categorize. I had good success with it, right? Like red was very rarely a bad color to be in, but I couldn't decide where it is on the scale. So I'm just going to leave it as a neutral. It's a color that is there, and play it. It's fine. It does things. It does good things. And I don't really know if you want to play it as a support color or a main color. Maybe it depends on your playstyle. I'm not a massive fan of red overall as a color, so maybe my playstyle is just not correct for red, which is perfectly reasonable to say. And other people may pilot red decks a lot better than me. They probably do. So you may be looking at some of these cards and going, "Now, this is much better for X, Y, or Z." But my experiences from the draft is that red can function quite flexibly. It's quite flexible, which is fair enough, I suppose. Moving on to green. Green is another base color. This is a color that has loads of excellent... It has an excellent creature base, but also has good answers, because they just had to give green literally everything for another set. Because I'm telling you, M20, mono green. Eldraine, green red, or just mono green, or just mono red, but there you go. Theros, Gruul, or green, or Golgari. And now we have Ikoria, where green is also really good in this set as well. So I'm not saying that green is just always good in draft, but green has always been good in draft. So let's go over some of the cards, and I'll explain why that is. Adventurous Impulse is a good card. Look at the top 3. May reveal a creature or a land. So this lets you sculpt your opening hand if you have it in your opening hand for 1 mana. So sculpting for 1 mana, pretty decent. If you're top decking, it can help you avoid getting land drops and help you get a creature. So it's very rarely bad as a 1 mana spell. The Almighty Brush Wag. The Almighty Brush Wag. This card is fantastic. 1 green for a 1/1 with trample. And you're like, well, 1/1s with trample don't matter. No, they do not. But you can pump it for 4 to give it +3/+3, which turns it into a 4/4, which is very good. So the Brush Wag is not a creature your opponent can ignore when trying to declare attacks. So it's a very nice defensive card. It's also a good card to mutate onto, because it's going to get extra value from the pump and the trample. So mutating onto the Brush Wag will give you whatever creature you put on top of it, the ability to pump itself, which I have both been tricked by and tricked people with. It's an easy thing to forget what exactly is under the mutate stack, and Brush Wag is one that will catch people out. It also has synergies with the trample archetype, so that also adds to its value. But yeah, think of this like a more expensive Frostwaller. Or Rootwaller, or whatever the hell it was. yes, Root Waller was way better, but Brushwag follows the same premise, like Knight of the Ebon Legion. You know, those cards are good cards. Knight of the Ebon Legion is obviously better, and Root Waller is obviously better because it's a lot cheaper, so it's a lot better curve. But Brushwag is by no means bad, just because those cards are better. It follows the same premise, and it does it very well. So Brushwag, good card. Sudden Spinnerets. This is a way to play around quite a few decks, actually. 1 green gives a creature +1/+3, which can be enough to let it trade and not die, so that's a plus. Put a reach counter on it, so it can be used to deal flyers. That's also a plus. Untap it, so you can ambush people with it, but not just ambush people with it. Against the cycling deck, if they tap out all your creatures by cycling and then they swing with their Snare Tactician, you can untap your creature with Sudden Spinnerets and then trade the Snare Tactician, thus removing the one piece that they have that stops your green board from actually doing what a green board does. So Sudden Spinnerets, very solid combat trick. Like to include one of them in most of my decks that run green. Or at least have it in the sideboard against those two particular decks, being Cycling and Flyers. Essence Symbiote. Now this is a bit more of a build around card because it does rely on you having Mutate, but it's a 2-mana 2/2, so it's a Grizzly Bear. It's a Grizzly Bear with upside because whenever a creature you control mutates, put a 1/1 counter on that creature and you gain 2 life. So the life is just gravy. Like this is an archetypal example of we could take the life off this card, the life gain, and the life is and it's still a good card. So you could take the life gain off and it's still a good card, which means that it's just an added bonus. The +1/+1 counter on creatures when they mutate. You can mutate a creature onto the symbiote, and it will have that effect, and then you will continue to have that effect because the text simply gets added to the culmination of all the text on that card. So in a deck with plenty of mutate, particularly good in a sort of you can do Abzan mutate with Vulpikeets, this, and some other things beside. Possibly in black, some of the black mutates are quite good. But yeah, just you need to make sure you have a critical mass of mutate cards to make sure this card really performs. But when it does, it's very nice. So it's like Grizzly Bear at worst, massive upside to your mutates otherwise, so good. Humble Naturalist is a 2-mana 1/3 with add 1 mana of any colour. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell. Now, creatures are the mainstay of Ikoria. As you may have noticed, there's not a huge deal of instants and sorceries to work with. Or like instants and sorceries that fill the same role. Ikoria is very much, here's an instant, it fills this role. There will not be another one that does the same thing. It doesn't like to double up on like spell effects too much. But Humble Naturalist pays for your creatures. And this is good. Because he pays for all types of mana. So he's very good in wedge decks. In 3-color decks or more. In 4-color decks even. Very nice piece of ramp. He's also a decent blocker at 3 toughness, so he's one of those dorks for 2 mana that I don't mind playing because he has his uses as an early game blocker as well as ramping you into other creatures. So yeah, Humble Naturalist, +1 from me. Plummet. I was saying about flyers being a problem. Well, Plummet's in this set, so very nice sideboard card. Green has all the options as always. So yeah, Plummet's very good. Flyers becoming a problem, or your opponent mutates flying onto a problem. You know to run your Plummet, or in many cases, this card is something you can main deck. There are certain decks it won't have an effect on, but most decks will run at least 1 or 2 flyers because they are fairly available, and it is a wedge set, so people like to splash lots. Ram Through, 2 mana instant speed. Target creature you control deals damage to equal to its power target creature you don't control. So this is a rapid bite at instant speed. Why they had to do that, I don't know. But on top of that, they also added if the creature has trample, excess damage is dealt to creature's controller. So it's not only an instant speed rapid bite, but it's also an instant speed rapid bite that carries damage over if you target trample. So, in other words, this card is sick. This card is very, very good. Instant speed, like Rabid Bite effects are always very nice in draft because it's basically removal. Basically removal. Especially since green's got the big creatures, in almost all cases it's going to be solid. Survivor's Bond, 2 mana, return one or choose one or both. Return target human from graveyard to hand, or return target non-human from graveyard to hand. It's very easy to get 2 creatures back with this. It's in green. I don't know why this is green and not in black, but there you go. This is basically Aid the Fallen from War of the Spark, but this hits human and non-human as opposed to planeswalker and creature. But I'll take it. Survivor's Bond, very good. If you've got a decent mix of humans and non-humans, example Abzan, a color that I had great success with in this draft, Survivor's Bond is very solid for grinding value out as the game goes on. Next we have Wilt. Destroy target artifact or enchantment at instant speed. It also has cycling too, so a fine card to run in the main deck. A lot of decks rely on at least one piece of artifact or enchantment removal, either in the form of Springjaw Trap, which we haven't looked at yet, or Capture Sphere Pacifism, that kind of thing. So Wilt is quite good in that respect. And yes, you can cycle too. So that's also quite nice. Barrier Breach is... I mean, I have actually used this in my sideboard before against decks that absolutely, like against Azorius decks that have like 2 copies of Pacifism and a Capture Sphere. This can be really good, but this is more of a for the future standard card, I think, as opposed to an actual supposed to be played in draft. But yeah, it's fine. As I said, I have found a use for it before. And it's got cycling, so worst case scenario, it's got cycling. Charge of Forever Beast. This is a Rabid Bite, but it targets things in your hand. So, yeah, you just go, I reveal this big-ass creature, or a creature that's just big enough to kill yours, and then it deals its damage to that card. So 3 mana Rabid Bite from hand. Why is this good? Well, it lets green play a lot dirtlier. It lets green play more greedy, because they can just kill your creatures with the stuff they have in hand. They don't need to have creatures in play, because they can just blow your creatures up based on what they've got in their hand, which is fair enough. So yeah, seems solid. I have had times where this is a dead card in my hand, so I won't rate it too highly. I have had times when it's dead, but I think one of is good. I think taking more than one, I have had the option of taking more than one, and I did, and that's when it starts to fall off in value. I think taking one of in your deck is solid. Excavation Mole, 3/3 with Trample, for 3, so nice stat line. When it ETBs, you mill 3. This is much better when you've got lots of recursion in your deck, or you're playing a sort of a reanimator style deck. Gets a lot better in that respect. And otherwise, it's a decent stat line. If you don't mind pitching some cards to the bin, it's a fine creature. Fertilid, a great piece of ramp, 3 mana for a 2/2. It's not a 2/2, but it enters with 2 1/1 counters. You pay green and colorless to remove a 1/1 counter, and then you search a target player searches library. So you pick yourself, obviously, but there you go. They put the card for a basic land card. You put it onto the battlefield, tap to then shuffle your library. So it's a bit slow. Don't get me wrong; it's very slow, but you can actually mutate onto this, which can give it additional 1/1 counters. And it could give it actual stats. And once it's got stats, you can remove all the counters and it won't die. And if you have ways of getting more counters onto it somehow, maybe you mutate a keyword onto it, and then you constantly pump that keyword up with a mentor, then you can keep filtering lands out of your deck. So it can be a very good late game engine. Otherwise, it's just nice to have as a 3 mana, I play this card. It can block 1 power creatures. And in the eventuality that on turn 4 you drop a land, you pass to your opponent because you're holding up, I don't know, some tricks or whatever. Your opponent swings and you go, actually, I'm just going to block their biggest creature and then I'm just going to remove both the counters and ramp myself to. Perfectly acceptable. So, it's got its uses. Very nice. I wanted to like Fully Grown because I was like, oh, +3/+3 combat tricks are really good. But this costs 3, not 2, and that makes it awkward. It does give a trample counter, so it's got that kind of upside to it. But I found because it cost 3 and not 2, it actually lost a lot of value. So I would actually advise against running Fully Grown. I think it's slightly too expensive to be a valuable combat trick. There were times where it was useful. But I find I was searching for times for it to be useful more times than it actually was. And when you make that distinction with a card is when you basically should decide that the card is not worth picking up. So, yeah. Next we have the Glowstone Recluse, which is a 3-mana 2/3 with reach. It's one of the other few reach creatures in the set. You mutate for force. It's also one of the few creatures that has a more expensive mutate cost than its casting cost. Because whenever this creature mutates, you put 2 1/1 counters on it. So either you mutate onto the back of this, and it gets more 1/1 counters, and it retains reach, or you give reach to another creature and put 2 1/1 counters on it. Either way, very solid. It's one of the better mutate payoffs in the set. Obviously, you're making a huge threat out of that creature, so it could eat removal, but something's going to eat removal. So that's how it is. The Glowstone Recluse is very solid. Hornbash Mentor is the Trample Mentor. Now, the reason I like Hornbash Mentor is less because he's the Trample Mentor and more because he's a 3/3 for 3. So, as far as the Mentors go, he has the best stat line. So, there you go. I think Hornbash Mentor is very good to just play as a creature if you're in a tight spot. But Trample is obviously gets a lot of value the more counters you put on said creature. So the more you pump up your creatures with Trample, the better they get, because Trample is going to push damage through. It's like the flying one as well, really. Except flying is like evasive damage, whereas Trample is just, I'm going to force you to block my creatures because they will kick the crap out of you otherwise. So Hornbash Mentor is very, very versatile in that respect. Lead the Stampede, 3 mana, look at the top 5, you reveal any number of creature cards, put them into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. What Lead the Stampede does is it draws you 2 and or 3 creatures almost every time that you cast it, which makes it a 3 mana draw 2, but specifically creatures, so you don't get stuffed on land, which makes it a strictly better divination at uncommon. Yeah. So Lead the Stampede is really good. I recommend playing it in pretty much every deck that runs green. You will nearly always hit 2 creatures out of it. The few times that you hit 1 creature or no creatures, the few times that those happen are rare enough that Lead the Stampede is always value, right? And even if you're hitting 1 creature, it's better than just top decking, top decking a land and then top decking another land, where you Lead the Stampede and you find a creature and play it the next turn. It's not so bad. So yeah, Lead the Stampede, highly rated. Moscow Goriak I've already talked about as a sort of MVP card in general, just for having 4 toughness and being good. Thwart the Enemy's Fog Effect. I didn't use this. I lost 1 game because of this, but I didn't use it at all myself. I didn't think it was very good, so I won't talk about it very much. Bristling Boar is a classic, a 4/3 4/4. Bristling Boar can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. Now, you may have noticed that Menace and putting Menace counters on things is a thing in this set. Because of that, Bristling Boar goes up way in value because you can make it just straight up unblockable. If you're playing a Gruul deck, Bristling Boar is your prime target for Frill Scare Mentors. Or if you're playing a Golgari deck, you can play Blood Curdle after getting a Boar in play, give it Menace, and just keep on hitting your opponent. It's also another good recipient for other keywords, flying, first strike, those kinds of things. Or to mutate other creatures on the back of this, particularly large creatures. If you're mutating a 6/6 onto the Bristling Boar, your opponent is forced to try and block a 6/6 with one creature. That becomes very difficult. Next, we've got Wolf Bear. Wolf Bear is a 4 mana 4/4, so stat line, very solid. Whenever it attacks, you may change the base power and toughness of target human you control to Wolf Bear's power and toughness. It's kind of like a support creature for the mentors, I guess, or for just humans in general. If you play like a Selesnya deck or Abzan, in most cases you want this thing to be swinging with a 1/1 token, so you get 2 4/4s out of it. But 4/4 is a very good stat line, so this is a perfectly serviceable card just in general, even if you don't have much human synergy in your deck. So I'd say it's pretty good. I would just say it's pretty good. This is a rare, so it's a bomb, as I said. Migration Path. Ramp that has cycling attached to it makes it a lot more playable. I wouldn't highly pick this, but if you do end up with one, it's not the end of the world. Also, it's nice fixing, so, it's got that going for it too. As I said, you make the decision, but it has cycling, so it very rarely is a dead card, and when it is, you just cycle it and not feel so bad. So there you go. Migratory Greathorn. This is a good card. 3/4 for 4, not the worst stat line, but mutate for 3. Whenever this creature mutates, search for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So 3 mana, you get to put a land onto the battlefield, but you also get to boost one of your creatures up. And if you want to make a mutate stack, this is a good card to put on the mutate stack, because you're always filtering land out of your deck, and you're also increasing the mutate counter, and you're also giving yourself 4 toughness, which is a nice number to have. So, yeah. Greathorn, solid card. Solid ramp card, very good. Next we have the Starix. Now this card is uncommon, but if I had to say there was a uncommon bomb in the set, it's Starix. Starix is the uncommon bomb of the set. 5 mana for a 6/6, right? It has above curve stats, which is already kind of silly. Its mutate cost is 6, so you mutate a 6/6 for 6, right? Colossal Dreadmaw and the Honey Mammoth I showed earlier are 6 mana 6/6s, right? This is a 5 mana 6/6 that you mutate for 6. It isn't double green. Honey Mammoth is double green. This isn't double green. I can't explain who designed this card and how it got through testing, but they obviously didn't actually look at the rest of the set, to be quite frank. Because this card, its stat line just doesn't make sense for its cost. Anyway, we haven't even got to the mutate part. We haven't even got to the mutate part. So the mutate part is, whenever this creature mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile X permanent cards, where X is the number of times this creature has mutated. Put those permanent cards onto the battlefield. So you mutate this onto a creature, you flip the top card of your deck. If it's a permanent, you play it for nothing. If it's not permanent, like a spell or whatever, you don't play it. It goes to exile, and you flip again, and you keep doing it until you hit enough permanents. If, for example, say you go, I play a 1-drop, I play a 2-drop, I mutate a Greathorn onto the 1 or 2-drop, ramp to 4. I hit turn. The next turn, I play a land. I can just play the Starix as a 6/6. And then mutate on the back of it on turn 4. So turn 4, 6/6, pretty good. Using just one ramp card. Say you go turn 1, a Brush Wag. Turn 2, Naturalist. Turn 3, put the Migratory Greathorn on the Brush Wag. Bam. You got a 3/4 and a 1/3. You pull a land out of your deck. Right. Next turn, you play another land. You tap the Naturalist for mana. You've got 5 mana in play. You mutate the Starix onto the Greathorn. The Greathorn searches your deck for a land. You got another land into play. The Starix, because you've already mutated once, now activates twice. So what that means is you flip the top cards of your deck until you find 2 permanents and play them for free. Now, even if it's playing 1-drop creatures for free, it's still really good. If it hits a bomb in your deck like a Titanoth Rex, the game is frickin' over. That's what I mean about this card. This card can single-handedly win games the second it hits the board, just by RNG. Other times, it's just a huge value engine that your opponent has to deal with, and if they don't, you win the game anyway. So, yay for Starix. It's an uncommon card, and it's a total frickin' bomb, and if you see this, you should be in green, because if you ain't in green, you're doing yourself a disservice. That's just how this draft is. Anyway, moving on. Flycatcher Aphid. 5 mana for a 3/5. It ETBs with either Vigilance or Reach. In almost all cases, this card is going to get Reach. Because Reach is nice. Stat line wise, not bad. As I said, a lot of the creatures in the deck can't handle with 4 toughness. Why is that? Because they only have 3 power. The creatures that have 4 power are the ones you need to watch out for. This card can block 4 power creatures. Not only that, but it's got 3 power, so it can kill a lot of the other smaller things in the set too. So it's a perfectly serviceable blocker, quite a good one in fact. And its high toughness means that it can block pretty much every flyer in the format as well. You can give it Vigilance. In some cases, it is worth getting Vigilance, but normally it's a Reach creature in most cases. Monstrous Step. I honestly thought this card would be good because you force your opponent to block you and you give a creature 7/7. And it has cycling, so if it's a dead card, it's a dead card. But I found in almost all cases this would sit in my hand and I would cycle it, and I'd never find a use for it. So I'm gonna list this as one of the few trap cards in green, and just tell you not to play it. And you can give it a bash if you want, but I played so many drafts as green, and it's just nah. No, thank you. Rest of the green cards, we've got Honey Mammoth, a 6/6 for 6, and it gains you 4 life. The 4 life is not negligible in this format, and the 6/6 is not negligible either. This is a good card. Very good card. So, yep, recommend giving the Honey Mammoth a shot. Rares, the only rare I will talk about as not being a bomb is the Colossification, because it kind of is a big kill me sign on your creature. However, if you do manage to untap with the creature and attack your opponent, they're probably going to have to be trading creatures off every single turn. But this is probably the only rare that I think people will skip on, and it's one that I personally skipped on as well. It's just too expensive and it doesn't do anything. So there you go. That's how I'm going to chalk that one up. Next we've got the Great Sandworm. This is a 7 mana 7/7. Can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. You can't chump it. You've actually got to pitch half-decent creatures underneath it. And it has cycling too. So this card is very rarely bad. Again, it's got cycling, so it won't sit dead in your hand. And it's 7/7, so it's a great stat line. So it's a very good creature. Very good. Next, we've got Godzilla Primeval Champion, also known as Titanith Rex, which is a 9 mana 11/11 with Trample. However, it's also got cycling for 1 and a green for to put a trample counter. This is the cycling for key text creature. Its main use is in the Reanimator decks, where you can cycle this, put trample on a inconsequent. You don't even need to necessarily put trample on a creature. You can literally just not put. You could just not have any creatures in play. Cycle it, draw a card. On turn 5 or turn 6, depending on which fight card you've got, how much ramp you've played, you can play Godzilla out, and if your opponent hasn't got an answer, you're probably just winning the game there and then. So, very nice card. Very nice card. Even in just the green Stompy decks, even in green Stompy, this card can just be something that you include as your curve topper and go, hey, we actually made this game go on long enough. Now I'm going to play a Titanith Rex. And your opponent goes, oh, that's a shame. I already used all my removal on everything else leading up to this. I didn't think my opponent would be ballsy enough to play a 9 mana card. But this is certainly, the ultimatums are 7 mana and they're, awkward to cast, but they win games and there's nothing stopping you from casting them. So why not play a Godzilla in your deck? That's basically the way I see it. It's powerful enough that it wins games by itself if it resolves. And chances are your opponent probably also used up their counter spells. So yeah, good card, good curve topper. Finally, we have the Ivy Elemental, which is a 1 green and X. It enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it. X creatures are normally pretty good because they just fill every part of the curve. In this case, yeah, it's the curve is whatever you want it to be. However, it is an elemental, and it is also it gets counters. Why is this important? Well, it means you can mutate other creatures onto the back of it, and those creatures retain those counters, but can then gain a base power and toughness value. So, say you play the Ivy Elemental as a 1/1 on turn 2, literally just a 1/1 on turn 2, and then on turn 3 you mutate the Migratory Greathorn, the one that ramps, onto the back of the Elemental. The Greathorn is on top, so now it's a 4/5 that ramped you, and that makes it a much more dangerous creature. And all we did is put one counter on it, and that's it. So, but you know, if you're in top deck mode and you just tap like 8 lands sideways and get 7/7, also very serviceable. So yeah, it's one of those cards that's just never bad, really. As you may have guessed, I only picked out like 3 cards I wouldn't play in green, not to mention the rares and the mythics. It also has the uncommon bomb of the set. So yeah, green is just an incredibly good color. It's got great creatures along the entire curve. It's got good spells. It has answers to most stuff. It's got fight cards. It's got kill cards. It's got destroy enchantments and artifacts. Green's got it all, man. If there's a color you want to use as a base color, it's green. Green is by far the base color of the set. So everyone should be playing green splash other stuff, really. If you're not playing green splash other stuff, you're playing black splash other stuff. That's basically how I played Ikoria. And then, of course, there's Abzan, where you just play green, black, and then white. And then, yeah, you just, or Golgari, or Sultai. So you're just mixing green and black, so you're getting the best of both worlds. That's basically what I've got to say about the monocolors in Ikoria. Let's take a look at the artifacts. But yeah, green is just fantastic. So a quick recap. I consider white and blue to be kind of support colors for different archetypes. White is more playable as a solo archetype. But yeah, I'd say these are like definitively support colors for other archetypes. Black is a good base color with a emphasis on removal. Because, you know, the removal's pretty good. And also tough creatures. Tough and resilient creatures. So if you like removal and, you know, stalling the board out, black likes to do that, either with tokens or just tough stuff. Red is a bit up in the air. It's a flexible color. It can fit as a support or as a main color, depending on what cards you get past. And it excels in certain color groupings. Izzet especially. Shout out to Izzet. Izzet is a very nice archetype to play. The Spellslinger Izzet deck with Reconnaissance Mission and things like Forbidden Friendship. Very, very solid. Also has some very nice rares like the Evercool Phoenix. So it's definitely a color that you don't mind splashing, assuming you get some of the rares. So yeah, overall pretty good. Flexible. And then there's green, which I think is like the Daddy-O color. It's the color to be in. It's got all the good stuff. It's just really pushed, basically. There's never a situation where you feel bad to be in green. And when there's a color in a draft where it just never feels bad to be in it, regardless of how many cards you pull in that color, yeah, you know it's a strong color. The rares are great. The mythics are great. It just rocks. Green rocks. Anyway, let's go to the artifacts, or you know, non-colored, because we also have some special land. We've got the Bonder's Enclave. Now this is a rare. It's a rare land. Add colorless or pay 3, tap. So you have to tap 4 lands. Draw a card. Activate this ability only if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. So that's Ferocity, I think, or whatever the hell they called it back in the day. It's good. It's pretty good. If you can first pick this, you can build around it. And having a land that gives you card advantage is like taking an Arch of Erazka in the Ixalan drafts. So yeah, it's perfectly reasonable to have a land that draws you cards as your first pick, as long as you definitively build around this. And I recommend you're in green for doing that because you get things like the Bristling Boar and stuff like that, which is very nice. So yeah, Bonner's Enclave solid. Evolving Wilds was an obvious include into the sort of land cycle for this set because it is a wedge set. You are encouraged to play 3 colors, so Evolving Wilds makes sense. I didn't really ever pick this up. I always found I had enough fixing in other ways to make 3 colors work, or was just sturdily enough that 3 colors worked anyway. Mothra's Great Cocoon, or Mysterious Egg, is a 1-mana 0/2. Whenever this creature mutates, put a 1/1 counter on it. It's colorless, but not an artifact, just so you remember, because I made that mistake in one match and didn't make that mistake again. But yeah, Mysterious Egg. Honestly, I don't think this card was ever very good. Even in Mutate Heavy Shells, I felt this card was a bit naff, so I would advise against picking this up. Springjaw Trap, 1 mana for a artifact with flash. Pay 4 and tap to sack Springjaw Trap. It deals 3 damage to any target. Why is this a good card? Well, it's got flash, so you can hold up mana and then still play it out without feeling like you wasted mana. If you have 5 mana, you can play it out and activate it, which your opponent may not exactly expect. And it says it deals damage to any target, so it can bolt face, which is sometimes all you need to push that last piece of damage. So it is also face damage, which gives it a little bit of extra utility. It's an absolutely fine card, so I think it's decent. I had a lot of decks where I'd include Springjaw Trap as in the main deck, or sometimes in the sideboard, depending what I felt like. The Ozolith is interesting. It's a legendary artifact for 1. It's rare. I would not recommend picking this up in draft, but I will just briefly go over it. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. So it stores counters. And it does specifically say whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield. So your creature could get exiled, the counters will still go onto the Ozolith. So it's not that bad. It's pretty good. It's also like the little DNA helix from Jurassic Park. So, props for references, I suppose. But yeah, the Ozolith is in draft. I think it's a bit lackluster, but maybe you can build a deck around it. I never tried because it's a rare, and it was such a build around rare. I was like, I don't want to waste my time if it fails, so I'll just not pick it up. But yeah, I don't see a problem with that necessarily. Sleeper Dart, 2 mana. When it ETBs, draw a card. Sack Sleeper Dart. Target creature doesn't untap during its control's next untap step. I actually think this card is basically just a better Frostlinks, because in all the cases that you want to you want to freeze a creature out, you're not actually that bothered about the 2/2 that comes with it. So cycling itself and then freezing creatures is probably more valuable. That's the way I see it anyway. So next we have Mechagodzilla. 3 mana for a rare 3/3. Beginning of combat on your turn, choose a kind of counter at random that Crystalline Giant. This is actually Crystalline Giant, by the way. The Crystalline Giant doesn't have on it from among Flying, First Strike, Death Touch, Hexproof, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, Vigilance, and +1/+1. Put a counter of that kind on Crystalline Giant. So basically, combat starts, you put a part of Keyword Soup onto Crystalline Giant, which means if the game goes on long enough, this thing is going to be a Hexproof, Menace, Death Touch, Lifelink, Trampler with Vigilance, or it sounds ridiculous because you'd need it on the board for like 5 turns. I can tell you, I have had a Crystalline Giant more than once that had 4 or more counters on it. And if it gets First Strike and Death Touch, it's dank. If it gets Hexproof, it's dank. If it gets Flying, it's dank. Like there's so many good things that you can get. Like Death Touch, Lifelink, Flying, hexproof, even reach isn't that bad in certain situations. Even just turning into a 4/4 is pretty good too. So the way I see it is that this card it quickly gets out of control if your opponent has no answers for it. It's also a decent body. It's 3 mana and it's colorless. So it's one of those cards you can happily pick up as a first pick, and you're still open to all colors, and it fits in all deck archetypes very, very nicely. So very, very flexible card and very powerful. Next we have the Farfinder, which is a 3 mana 1/1 with Vigilance. It's totally colorless. It's basically the Seeker from the Seeker bot from Dominaria, or Pilgrims, whatever it is. When Farfinder enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. So it helps you fix your mana. In particularly, it's also a fox, which means that you can mutate onto this. So, yeah, you don't need to necessarily whatchamacallit. You don't have to. It's not just a dead card as a creature on board, because it can get you mana to get you to the mutate target you're trying to aim for, and then you can mutate it onto the fox. And the fox gives vigilance, so it even gives it a keyword, and works quite nicely with one of the multicolored cards, which is kind of one of the lords, the vigilance lords. Works very nicely with that card to make decks very dirtly, but I'll come to that in a bit. And then we have Adaptive Shimmerer, which is a 5 mana with flash for 3/3. I got tricked out by this one time in earning 100 packs in draft. I got tricked out by it once. I think that was the only player I ever saw see play this. I think this is legitimately the worst card in the set. So there you go. There you have it. That's the worst card in the set. Don't take it. Never take it. It's just not worth it. I don't like it. There you go. Moving on, we have the multicolored cards, which includes the multicolored land and all sorts of other stuff, like the triomes, the ultimatums, and the other big rares. There are a lot of rares in the multicolored bit, okay, so take that for what it is. We'll go through them. Mythos of Snapdax. This is a white Tragic Arrogance. If you pay Mardu, you get to pick what the other player sacrifices, or that you get to pick what they keep. So Tragic Arrogance, where if you pay Mardu, you get to be the one selecting. Very nice. Very nice. However, in draft, not as amazing, honestly. I think this is good in draft because you can force your opponent to sack everything bar one creature. And if you do actually pay Mardu, you can force them to sack their good stuff as well. So I will say that it has that utility, but in most cases it's only going to hit creatures, right? It's going to force your opponent to sacrifice 2, maybe 3 creatures. In very, very long, drawn-out games, it might force them to sacrifice like 7 or 8, but then you're also sacrificing your own stuff, so you have to keep in mind it isn't just one-sided. Both players are going to hurt from it, but there you go. It's still a good card, though. Probably one of the less useful mythoses, but slightly more useful than I'd probably even go as far as to say it's the least useful mythos compared to the others, but it's still good. Mythos Faloona is a 4 mana, create a token that's a copy of target permanent. So it's a clone effect for 4, it's quite nice. If you pay Temur, then when the token is created, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. If it was a creature, you can copy target other target permanents, like enchantments or artifacts if you want. But yes, if it's a creature, this can also cause them to fight. So you can create a copy of your opponent's creature and have it fight itself, which will then kill them both. You can copy one of your own big creatures, kill one of your opponent's creatures. You can copy your opponent's big creature and kill one of their creatures. And then save yours for blocking. So Mythos Faloona, very solid. Mythos of Nethroi, 3 mana, destroy target non-land permanent if it's a creature. So 3 mana, instant speed, destroy target creature. and it's 1 black, so it's basically murder without the very hefty black cost requirement. Very good card. If you spend Abzan, it destroys target non-land permanent. So it's ubiquitous removal if you pay Abzan for it. Very nice, very nice. Obviously, removal is always good. The instant speed removal is better. This is a very nice, easy to cast piece of creature removal in draft. So very, very good card. Recommend you pick this up. And the ability to destroy extra stuff with it if you are in Abzan isn't totally irrelevant. Killing something like a pacifism that they slapped on your biggest creature might be more important than killing their creatures. So just, yeah, understand that it has that additional utility. Mythos Vadrok, actually had a pretty low opinion of when I was rating the set. But then I thought about it some more, and it's 4 mana, deal 5 damage as you choose among a number of creatures. In most cases, this will be a deal 3 and a deal 2. In some cases, it will be a straight deal 5. In some cases, it's deal 4, deal 1. In some cases, it's just a post-combat. You swing with everything, your opponent blocks, and they go, ha, I got a bunch of valuable trades there. And then you Mythos of Vadrok and kill 3 of their creatures. And then they suddenly feel very sad. So yes, if blue and white was spent to cast a spell, so you're playing Jeskai. Jeskai is spent to cast a spell. Until your next turn, those permanents can't attack or block, and their activated abilities can't be activated. Oh, right. What that means? What does that mean? That means that if you pay Jeskai for this in a board stall situation, 5 of your opponent's creatures can't block, because ideally you're playing this when 5 creatures can't block. In that situation. And if you're in a board stall that's gone on longer than both players having 5 creatures in play, then what that means is freezing 5 of them is probably going to make it so you swing for lethal, right? This is either a card that stalls out and you swing for lethal with it, or it's a card that just blats some of your opponent's creatures and gives you a board presence. So either way, very good. Mythos Brokos. This is the Sultai one. You pay 4 for if Sultai was spent to cast a spell, search your library for a card. Put that card into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. So it entombs if you play Sultai. It then returns 2 permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. So you can basically tutor your deck for a card if you play Sultai. If you don't play Sultai, you can just return 2 cards from your bin. Note, these are permanent cards. You can return artifacts and enchantments as well. So you can return a Capture Sphere, for example, that your opponent may have removed, and then you can play that again. So Mythos Brokos, very good. It's just the, how to put it? It's a nice piece of graveyard recursion. I still think Survivor's Bond is better than Mythos Brokos, at least in terms of its cost. This is a bit too expensive, but this is also a tutor, so it can pick out some of your best cards in your deck if you need them. If you go late into the game and you top deck it. Just as a note, we have Lifelands, so Lifelands were in the set as well. They're fine. But now we're moving on to the sort of the real multicolor cards. So first we have the Azorius ones. We have Skycat Sovereign. This is the Flying Lord in Azorius. It is an elemental cat. It's a 2-mana 1/1 with flying. It gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with flying. So it's like a reverse Lord where it pumps itself based on the amount of flyers you have. But it also has the extra bonus of pay 4 to create a 1/1 white cat bird creature token with flying. 4 mana to create tokens. Any token creators are automatically really strong in draft. The fact that those tokens also buff the Skycat Sovereign make it even better. So Skycat Sovereign is probably one of the best flyers in the set, and is also a token generator on top of that. It's very, very good. Very, very good. Don't need to explain that too much. Here we've got the Jubilant Skybonder, which is a 3 mana for a 2/2 in hybrid blue and white. It is a human wizard, so it is a human, pay attention. Because if you're playing Human Tribe, this is one of the few flyers that humans can access that are humans. Other flyers that they can access won't be humans, but this is one of the few human flyers, so it does benefit from human synergies. Creatures you control with flying have spells your opponents control cast. Spells your opponents cast that target this creature cost 2 more to cast. So it effectively has a spell pierce attached to itself whenever your opponent casts spells targeting it, or attacks effect, if you would. Which means it's quite a robust flyer, even though it is only a 2/2. It doesn't trade well with other flyers in the set. Keep that in mind. It does not trade well with any of the other flyers in the set. What that means, it's solely used to give you flying pressure if you know your opponent has bad answers to flyers. That's pretty much its sole use. But it's not bad because of that. Next, we've got Yorion, is the companion. A 5 mana 4/5 with flying. His companion requirement is that your starting deck contains at least 20 cards more than minimum deck size. In this case, it would mean to play him as your companion, you have to have 60 cards. Now, in draft, running 60 cards means that your deck is likely 3 colors and probably includes a bunch of trash. However, his ETB is, when Yorion enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-land permanents you own and control. Return those cards to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. Now, in draft, there's not a huge amount of ETB effects you care about, per se. So it's a bit... Yorion's a very niche sort of companion, for the most part. However, I would just say he's a 5 mana 4/5 flyer in white or blue, so just play him anyway. This is something I never understood about players in draft. They would force, like, Karuga or Yorion to be their companion, or they would just straight up not pick them. They would just pass them around. I'm like, huh? And they would either force them to be their companion or not pick them, even though it's like you can just play them in the deck. There's literally one of the biggest mistakes. If this is anything you take away from the summary, one of the biggest mistakes I saw of people playing the draft is that they would force companions into their companion slot, or they would straight up not pick them because they didn't want to put them in their companion slot. These cards are perfectly playable in the main deck. You don't need to companion these cards to make them good. A 5 mana 4/5 flyer is good in draft. And you'll see that some of the other companions are even better when you just play them in the main deck. So there you go. But Yorion is mostly going to be used as a flying beat stick. Not a bad one, though. Pretty good one. Next, we have Dire Tactics, which is a Orzhov card. Orzhov instant speed, exile target creature. So instant speed exile at 2 mana. Very good. If you don't control a human, you lose life equal to that creature's toughness. I actually have a game recorded where I could have killed my opponent by using funky tricks when this hit the stack. I screwed it up because I only noted after it resolved. What I did is I had a creature in play. It was the 7s. I had a Sandworm in play. My opponent had 1 human in play. They went, I Dire Tactics the Sandworm. They had 10 life, right? So I was like, okay. I get my Sandworm to ram through on the human. So the human is now dead. My opponent's going to take 7. I thought, that's okay. My opponent takes 7. He's on 3. I had 1 mana open, and I had a Sudden Spinnerets in hand, and was like, oh. And after I clicked Resolve, I was like, crap. Sudden Spinnerets pumps toughness by 3. I could have just killed them with their own spell, which would have been cool. But yes, this is a very good piece of removal. You can get tricked out, but in most cases, this is just great. So don't ignore the whole you lose life. It's just Swords to Plowshares, or not Swords to Plowshares, but you get the idea. It's just good. The fact that it has a downside is not really a downside. General's Enforcer. 2 mana for 2/3. Legendary humans you control have Indestructible. Pay 4. Exile target card from Graveyard. If it was a creature, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. This card is great. Ignore the legendary humans you control have indestructible. A lot of people will look at this card and be like, I'm not in humans, I don't want to play this card. I played this card plenty of times in Abzan and had no human synergies. This card is just good. You know what I said about things that generate tokens in draft? This generates tokens in draft. It also hates your opponent's graveyard. This is a good card. And also stat-wise, it's a 2 mana 2/3. So it's actually a good stat creature as well. So yeah, this is a great card. This is a great card. Recommend. And then there's General Kudro of Drannith, a 3 mana 3/3. In Orzhov, other humans you control get +1/+1. So he's a 3 mana Anthem that's also a 3/3 creature. Whenever Kudro or another human enters the battlefield, exile target card from an opponent's graveyard. So he hates out your opponent's graveyard when you play humans, which is fair enough. And after that, you've got pay 2, sacrifice 2 humans, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. It is a sacrifice that he is willing to make. So yeah, General Kudro is very solid. If you have to sacrifice creatures to kill something, then you're probably in a pretty dire spot, especially since he is an Anthem effect for humans. So if your humans aren't big enough after he buffs them to kill said creature, then that is one hell of a monstrous creature, and yeah, it's probably okay to sacrifice some humans to deal with it. I get very Starship Trooper vibes from the humans of Ikoria, but it's quite funny, so, you know. It even looks like there's a kid in the background there, so it's like that scene out of Starship Troopers, where they're like all lined up, saying, they'll do their part, and like, I'm a first-rate citizen or whatever. That's just fun. That film is funny, and the humans just remind me of that on Ikoria. So there you go. Next we've got Lurrus, which is in black or white. This is the other This is the black or white companion. Lifelink for a 3/2. Each permanent card in your starting deck has CMC cost 2 or less to be your companions. You have to play nothing but weenies. During each of your turns, you may cast one permanent spell with CMC cost 2 or less from your graveyard. Once again, this is another card that you should absolutely not play as your companion. You should just play it in the deck. Why is that, you ask? Because you want to have cards that cost more than 2 in your draft deck. Okay? I saw people forcing Lurrus as their companion and just totally running out of gas because they don't have enough permanents that can actually hold the board down. But if he's in your deck, he allows you to recur very useful things, like a Deadweight, or a creature that you constantly sacrifice to draw cards, or a Springjaw trap so you can bolt your opponent's face every turn, or bolt their creatures, whatever happens to work. So yes, Lurrus, very good in draft, but he needs to be played in your deck, not as your companion. Just making sure you know. Next we've got the Necropanther, which is a 3 mana 3/3, so again, good stat line for, Orzhov has got great stat lines. This is what I mean by Abzan being very good. The Orzhov cards in Hybrid were very nice. So it's 3 mana 3/3. You mutate it for 4. Whenever this creature mutates, return target creature card with CMC cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So the more you mutate, the more stuff you get back. It's quite nice to have it as a recursion card. The problem is that the cards that are CMC 3 or less are probably the things that you want to be mutating this on top of, because this is only a 3/3 body, so it's not that exciting. But it is a good target to mutate onto, so you could play this as a 3/3 and then mutate stuff onto the back of this, which is also fine. Like a Vulpikeet, for example. Mutate a Vulpikeet onto this, give it flying, turn it into a 4/4, return a 2-drop from your graveyard. Pretty good value. So yeah, Necropanther is good value, but I'd say it's more a creature you play than you mutate. But either way, works nicely. Next, got the Dimir cards. We've got Cunning Nightbonder, which is a blue or black 2/2 with Flash as a human. Spells with Flash you cast cost 1 less to cast and can't be countered. Much more of a standard card. There's a few cases where this card comes up and is good. But in most situations, I think the Cunning Nightbonder is more of a standard card rather than played in draft. So I'd probably skip on this one if I were you. Slither Wisp, however, is a 3 mana 3/2 in pretty hard to cast colors. It has flash. Whenever you cast another spell that has flash, you draw a card, and each opponent loses 1 life. You can build around this card. You'll be picking up a lot of Springjaw traps if you do, but you can build around this card. If you do, keep in mind your deck is going to probably be pretty crap unless this thing is on board. This is much more a standard card. The 2 flash sort of Lord synergy type things, they're more for standard than they are for draft, honestly. Just play a normal deck. Don't try and force this. You can rare draft it, maybe slot it in your deck just as a I have a 3/2 with flash, I guess. That's hard to cast. But yeah, generally speaking, just play it standard. Then we got the Dimir Companion, which is Gyruda, or Gigan, Cyberclaw Terror. Companion is a 4 mana. It's a 6 mana 6/6 in Dimir. Your starting deck contains only cards with even CMC. When Gyruda enters the battlefield, each player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. Put a creature card with an even CMC cost from among those cards onto the battlefield. So, if you play it as your companion, you're probably always going to hit something. If you play it as your in your deck, and you run non-even cost CMC creatures, you could still hit stuff out of your opponent's deck, and you could still hit stuff out of your deck as well, admittedly. Not one of the worst cards to play as your companion, but I would honestly err on the side of probably still better to go in the deck than actually play as a companion, but he's a very good card. Very good card. So I recommend playing him, even if he's not your companion. Next we've got the Izzet cards. We've got Dorat, the Perfect Pet, also known as Sprite Dragon, which is a 2 mana 1/1 in Izzet with flying and haste. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a 1/1 counter on Sprite Dragon. This is a much better put counters on card because it's much cheaper. So even just a few counters incidentally is very powerful. It's also a flyer, so it's got its own evasion, so it makes it very, very good. Very solid card, do like. So I recommend that in the Izzet Spellslinger decks. Next we have Lord Drakis, which is a 3 mana 2/3, but it mutates for 2, so it's got a cheaper mutate. Whenever this creature mutates, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Note that this can mutate for blue or red. You don't actually need to be playing blue and red in your deck to make use of this card. I have played this in just shells that run blue. I've played this in shells that run red. And it works very nicely. Returning something like Rumbling Rockslide or a kill spell, Fire Prophecy, even if you're playing black as well and you get something like a Blood Curdle, or you're playing white and you get an exile effect like a Swallow Whole. This card is very, very good, and it's whenever this creature mutates, so you can mutate onto. I've had a Lord Drakis recur the same Rumbling Rockslide 5 times in a game before. No big surprise, I won that game. Even though my opponent was like, top deck, threat, top deck, threat, top deck, threat. I was like, mutate another card onto Drakis, mutate another card onto Drakis, mutate another card onto Drakis, and just blew it up over and over again. And if it's like, oh, you must have been top decking mutates, well, I had a Dreamtail Heron on it as well, so I was drawing cards whenever I mutated too, so it was pretty hard not to. That was a good deck. That was a good Izzet deck. But yeah, this is a solid card in Izzet, but you can play it in other archetypes too. Next we have Lutri. Now Lutri is probably the companion I would say is going to be most common that you'll see in draft. It's 3 mana in Izzet for a 3/2 with flash. Each non-land card in your starting deck has a different name, so you can only have 1 copy of each card, which in draft is a lot easier to do because, it's like, it would be nice to have 2 copies of this card, but having Lutri available as a companion is a much bigger payoff than running 2 copies of a particular card. So there you go. Lutri is one of the companions I would recommend to play in the companion slot. Again, can be paid with red or blue. You don't have to be playing a Izzet deck to make use of them. When Loot Tree enters the battlefield, if you cast it, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. So it's a 3-mana copy target spell. And you do have to control the spell, so you can't copy your opponent's stuff. But I will say there is... say your opponent declares attacks, right? You have 5 mana up. You startling development one of your creatures. You then play Luttree. You copy the startling development targeting Luttree. You now have 2 4/4 blockers where your opponent swung in thinking you didn't have any. Yeah, that's a good 2 for 1. And then you have Luttree in play and your other creature to then swing back the next turn. And Luttree, you know, that's not only a trade, that's 3 damage. And that was the most common line of play I think I did with Luttree, and it worked basically every time. But there are plenty of other ways you can use Luttree. I've had Luttree just come into the battlefield and copy an Of One Mind to draw more cards. Perfectly reasonable use of Luttree there. Because Luttree sits in the companion slot, it's also like an 8th card in your opening hand, which is obviously very powerful. It's the main criticism of companions thus far, is that they're basically just extra cards in your opening hand, which makes them a bit too powerful. And in draft, that is definitely something I've literally just played Luttree as a 3/2 with Flash to hold the board down against aggressive decks, and then gone on to win those games because I had a 3-mana creature on tap that I could just play out to kill creatures in an aggressive deck. So yeah, I will say that companions are very powerful when they're in the companion slot. Luttree is one of those cards that fits the companion slot very nicely. Next, we've got Riel. Riel is a bit of a trap card, honestly. 3 mana, 0/3. She gets +1/+0 for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. She is a human, but does not really fit inside the human decks unless you're playing Jeskai. What I will say is, whenever you discard 1 or more cards for the first time each turn, draw that many cards. There is one particular deck she's good in, and if you're first picking Riel, you may not even be able to build the deck. And that is Jeskai cycling with Zenith Flare. If you play Riel in a Jeskai cycling deck with Zenith Flare, you might be able to make heads or tails of it, right? Because whenever you cycle a card, you'll draw an additional card. So it means that you're very unlikely to brick on land. You'll keep going, you'll keep going, you'll keep going. Then you Zenith Flare your opponent for lethal. But that is kind of janky, honestly. In most cases, I'm going to say Riel is a trap. Don't pick her up. There's, again, it's the one specific deck she's useful in. Otherwise, not that great. Channel Force is a 4-mana instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, discard X. Target player draws X. Channel Force deals X damage to one target creature or planeswalker. Most times I played this, I felt bad. Would I say I always felt bad playing this? I did try it. Most cases it wasn't that great. The upside is it is instant speed, and you can pitch lands that you've been holding on to because they're no use. But in most cases I didn't feel this card was very good. So I would say err on the side of caution and preference not picking this up or not playing it in your deck. But if you have to, you have to. Maybe some decks use it a lot better than others, but I didn't really feel it was very good. So there you go. Next, we've got Labyrinth Raptor. This is the Menace Lord, or one of the Menace payoffs. Rakdos for a 2/2 with Menace. Whenever a creature you control with Menace becomes blocked, defending player sacks a creature blocking it. So basically, your Menace creatures can only be blocked. They have to be blocked by 2 creatures, but they only actually fight 1 creature. You are very rarely swinging with this card once your opponent gets creatures in play. But if you have other big Menace creatures, like Tigerillas, for example, they are 4/3s, which means they're probably going 2 for 1 when your opponent tries to block them, which is very nice. Or if you get creatures with Death Touch and Menace, like the Grim Dancer out of black, that's a Death Touch. You can give it Death Touch, Menace, and then when your opponent tries to block it, they sack a creature, and then you have Death Touch. So it's always going to go 2 for 1. So very solid. Also can pump your Menace creatures to get additional damage through if your opponent decides not to block and you don't really have anything else to play. Next, we've got the Sonorous Howlbonder, which is a 3-mana 2/2 Sonorous. I think it's Sonorous, but yeah. Sonorous Howlbonder, 3-mana 2/2 with Menace. Each creature you control with Menace can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. This guy basically says that he is unblockable and other creatures you play are unblockable for the majority of the game, especially if you have good removal. This guy can be really, really pushed. But you do have to, yeah, you got to understand that he isn't a very fast clock. 3 mana for a 2/2. So you want things to come before him to like really get the beatdown going. But once he's in play, as long as you got the removal and can force the pressure on your opponent, chances are he's going to remain unblockable until your opponent concedes or is dead. So yeah, he's good for that. Next we have Obosh. This is the Rakdos companion. 3/5. Your starting deck contains only cards with odd CMC and land cards. If a source you control with an odd CMC would deal damage to a permanent player, it deals double that damage to that permanent player instead. This is another card that I'm actually quite happy to play in the companion slot. Having Obosh on tap is really, really good. And yeah, he just does he does what he needs to do. He makes all your creatures absolutely awful to try to block. But on top of that, he's also a 3/5, which is actually a 6/5. And playing 1, 3, and 5 creatures is informing your deck to be more aggressively costed, because you'll be going, I need 1-drop creatures to keep the tempo up. I need 3-drop creatures to give me a bit more staying power, and I need 5-drop creatures as my curve toppers. You probably don't want to go to 7 mana, though there probably are a couple of 7 mana creatures you could pick up, like the Sandworm if you're playing Jund or you're playing Golgari, because you can play this guy with black or red. You don't have to particularly play one or the other. But yeah, you're looking at 1, 3, and 5, which is reasonable. I think Gyruda is at 2, 4, and 6 is less so. Your tempo takes a bit too much of a hit going 2, 4, and 6, but going 1, 3, and 5 is actually more acceptable. So yeah, I think Obosh is okay to play as a companion, and he's pretty good too, pretty strong. Next, we got some Golgari cards. Golgari got quite a few cards in the set. We've got Chevel, who's a 2-mana 1/3 human with Death Touch. At the beginning of which is odd because green tends not to have humans that synergize with the whole human package, which tends to be Orzhov. But yeah, Chevel is a 1/3. At the beginning of your upkeep, if your opponents control no permanents with bounty counters on them, put a bounty counter on target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. Whenever a permanent an opponent controls with a bounty counter on it dies, you gain 3 life and draw a card. So the creature has to be destroyed. You can't get it with exile. That won't work. But he is a card advantage engine. You can only target one creature at a time. So you can't go, I'll put counters on all this stuff and then I'll kill everything. You have to do it one at a time. So single target removal works best with Chevel. He basically adds the clause, draw a card and gain 3 life to all your removal spells. As you can imagine, that's quite good. But also to your creatures as well. Okay, when your creature dies, when you pitch a creature underneath theirs, you gain 3 life and draw a card. So Chevel is very solid. Very solid. This cold is going to be the death of me. Oh, man. We're almost through it. We're almost there. Next we have the Fiend Artisan, which is a 2 mana for a 1/1. Fiend Artisan gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard. And then it also has a pod effect attached to it. As far as this goes in draft, total bomb. Some of the mythics are like Chevel's not necessarily a bomb, but he's just very good value. Whereas the Fiend Artisan as a mythic is a total bomb. If you get this, pick it up. Play green, have a good time. The ability to pod redundant creatures to get threats out of your deck, fantastic. Also gets powered up for every creature card in your graveyard. also fantastic. Fiend Artisan really has no downsides. It's just a great card to run in draft. Next, got Skull Prophet. We got 1 green, 1 black for a 3/1 human druid. He taps to add green or black, so he's one of the other dorks in the set, but he only taps for Golgari. And then you can also tap him to put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. The milling effect you probably don't want to be doing, really, unless you're a really, really hardcore reanimate deck. But you'll need like 2 or 3 reanimate spells and a bunch of good targets to really push that. But you know, a 2-mana 2/3, oh no, 2-mana 3/1. Sorry, I don't know why I said 2/3. There's not even anything on the page that looks like a 2/3. I just said 2/3. But yeah, it's a 2-mana 3/1 which adds black or green. Good dork that can actually trade with things. So you know, very rarely does he become redundant. So very solid, like him. Next, we've got the Boneyard Lurker. This is a Golgari Mutate. 4 mana for a 4/4. Good stat line. Or 4 mana Mutate. Whenever this creature mutates, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's recursion on your Mutate stack. You can keep mutating more stuff to keep returning more things. One of the best Mutate cards in the chain, because you can mutate this onto your stack, then you can mutate, you can get a mutate card back, mutate it onto the stack, get another mutate card back, rinse, repeat. And get a lot of mutate value out of that particular chain of play. Next you have a Mori, which is the black-green companion. It's a 4 mana 4/5. Has the companion text of each non-land card in your starting deck shares a card type. So in draft, this will be creature. It's not going to be anything else. It never will be. As Umori the Collector enters the battlefield, choose a card type. As I said, creature. Spells you cast a chosen type cost 1 less to cast. You can totally play this this guy as a companion. He's very solid. Reason being is that Umori is going to basically not just cost reduce your creatures, but also act as a threat in and of himself. A 4/5 is no joke. And it's an additional card in your opening hand. And if you're only playing creatures, having an additional threat in your opening hand almost guarantees that your opponent is going to run out of removal before you get all your threats down. So if that happens, then you're already winning. And the fact that he accelerates the rest of your creatures getting into play, very, very nice. Very nice. So yeah, Umori, top tier companion. You can definitely build around him if he's your first pick and feel good about it. Lastly, we've got Back for More. 6 mana instant speed. Return target creature card from graveyard to the battlefield. When you do, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. What that means is you can ambush and also get a block out of it. Also get a block. I've done this with, say, Bleats Lich. I've Back for Moored it. So I played it, given a creature -2/2, traded with a creature, so I get a 2-for-1 then. And then I get it back with Back for More, -2/2 a creature, and then fight another one. Yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, see, there are certain cards that work really, really well with this. Even just something like Titanoth Rex. Oh, I'll just recur my Titanoth Rex from the bin. I'll have my 11/11 fight your creature, and then I'll have it block another one of your creatures. It's still alive, so I can hit you next turn with it. Or not even next turn, I can just hit you on my turn with it. So yeah, Back for More, top tier combat trick that's also recursion from the graveyard, so very, very good card. Now we'll go onto the Gruul cards, which are a bit more punch face, obviously. Here we've got a Proud Wildbonder, which is a 4 mana 4/3. which is the human warrior with trample. Creatures you control with trample you may have this creature assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. So he basically means that all of your trample creatures can just swing and go straight to face, which means that sometimes you just end games out of nowhere. You drop this guy and go, I swing at you with I don't know. You could literally just be swinging at them with like a Bristling Boar you put trample on, and they're just like, oh, he's going to get 4 damage in for free. You go, yes. And then you cast a double strike on it or something, and then you get 8 damage in for free, and then they die. So, yeah, Proud Wildbonder can just clear games out by himself. But he's also 4/3 with trample. So he's not a bad body, you know, for 4 mana. So he's like pretty decent creature, but also has very good key tags. Now we have Gigantha of the Wellspring, which is a 5 mana 5/5 with red or green. Companion, no card in your starting deck has more than one of the same mana symbol in its mana cost. The easiest way to explain this is Boneyard Lurker has green and black in its mana cost, but they're not the same, right? Whereas Umori has 2 hybrid, which are green or black, but because they're hybrid, they count as the same mana. So you couldn't have Umori, but you could have Boneyard Lurker. Even though Boneyard Lurker's mutate is green or black, it's an alternate casting cost, and Gigantha only cares about the actual mana symbols in its mana cost. So it only cares about these symbols, it doesn't care about these symbols. Very important distinction. So yeah, Gigantha, no card in your deck has more than one mana symbol. So you've got like the double white cards, the double red cards. You can't run them, but you can run everything else. It has tap, add Wooburg or Wooburg. This mana can't be spent to pay generic mana costs. So the Wooburg that Gigantha taps for can't be used to pay for the colorless, but it can be used to pay for everything else. So you might be thinking, wow, that's one hell of a card. That's like that's a 5-color companion, right? So I play draft and I play 5-color deck. No. You play this as your companion because it's just an extra 5/5 in your opening hand. That can also help you pay mana costs for cards. That's it. Don't overcomplicate it. It's just a 5/5 in your opening hand, which feels good if your deck can support it. Otherwise, it's a 5/5 in your deck, because having another 5/5 in your deck is pretty good. So yeah, it's just a good creature basically. Causal Crasher is a 6/6 for 5. Sorry, let me get that right. 6/6 for 5 with trample. Whenever one or more creatures you control with trample deal combat damage to a player, create an XX green dinosaur beast creature token with trample, where X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. Now, if you're hitting your opponent with a 6/6 trampler, even if you go through for 1 damage and create a 1/1, feels good. If you hit them in the face and they don't block, you make a 6/6. So basically, Quartz Crasher reads 5 mana 6/6 with trample. Your opponent will overblock this creature because they have to. Or all creatures able to block this creature do so. That's basically what the creature does. If you do manage to hit them with it, then you're pretty much winning the game anyway, because you just hit your opponent with a 6/6 trampler. Creating the tokens is just a good upside. That's basically how I treat this card. It's a rare 5 mana 6/6 that your opponent is going to block the crap out of. So it's going to trade 2 for 1 in most cases. Moving on, we've got a Godzilla, King of Monsters, otherwise known as Zalortha, Strength Incarnate, which I did not open a single copy of. I think this... I can't remember a single person actually playing this either, but yeah. 5 mana for a 7/3 with trample. Lethal damage dealt to creatures you control is determined by their power rather than their toughness, which means that this is actually a 5 mana 7/7 with trample, which is nuts. Who cares about the rest of your deck? This is a 5 mana 7/7. Whether your deck's playing ridiculous hype power creatures or not, this thing kicks ass. So, meh. I would just play it anyway. But yeah, if you can build around this, if this is a first pick and build around it, it's very, very good. So, Like it for that reason. Next, we're moving on to Boros. We've got the Regal Leosaur, which is a 2-mana 2/2, which mutates for 3. Whenever this creature mutates, other creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. This is probably one of the least, or rather the most lackluster mutate cards in the set. I don't like it. I don't think you should play it. I think it's a bit shit. But 2 mana for a 2/2, compared to some of the other stats we've seen on the hybrid creatures, this is kind of weak. The mutate cost is it's a 3 mana coordinated charge at sorcery, which ain't that bad, I guess. But you have to have a lot of other creatures in play, and this doesn't actually. It's other creatures, so the creature you mutate this onto doesn't even get the +2/+1. So yeah, it seems like crap. Basically, it's just not that good. Savai Thunderbane is a 2 mana for a 3/2. You know, we're already getting better stats. Whenever you cycle a card, you may pay 2. When you do, Savai Thunderbane shocks something and you gain 2 life. So it deals 2, you gain 2. Mini Lightning Helix. This is a great card for the slower cycling decks that want to get maximum value. There are 2 kinds of cycling decks. The ones that cycle as fast as they possibly can, so they can Zenith Flare their opponent for tons of damage. And the other cycling decks where they try to get as much value out of every cycle card that they play. So they get a bunch of cycle synergy in play, then they cycle cards slowly, perhaps just one every turn, just to get maximum value. This works very well in the maximum value style of deck, and it's very good. Next we have Zerda the Dawnwaker, which is a 3 mana 3/3. Each permanent card in your starting deck has an activated ability. This includes mutate and cycling. Abilities you activate that aren't mana abilities cost 2 colorless less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana in that cost to less than 1 mana. I think mutate's actually an alternate casting cost, whereas cycling is an ability. This specifically states activated ability. So I don't think mutate works, but cards that have, like Glimmerbell. Glimmerbell is an example. Probably not one you'd use. Zerd is kind of like the cycling companion. Honestly, a 3 mana 3/3 isn't the worst thing in the world anyway, so you could just play them in the deck. It's kind of hard to make them your companion unless you're playing cycling, but if you are playing cycling, they can be pretty good. So, there you go. Next, got Winota, Joiner Forces. You've probably seen about this card in Standard. It's the katana-wielding cat girl that is destroying everyone with their how much they cheat, because why not? It's a 4 mana 4/4 human soldier, or warrior, sorry. Warrior, not soldier, very important distinction. Or raccoon girl, or whatever the hell they want to call them. It's a cat girl, okay? It's a cat girl with a katana, right? Whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a human creature card from among them onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Put the rest of the cards at the bottom of your library in a random order. Is this card worth playing in draft? 4 mana 4/4. So the answer is yes. Whenever a non-human creature you control, i.e. most of the cards in the set, attack, look at the top 6 cards of your library, you can get 3 humans out of it. Is this card worth it in draft? Yes. Do you need to build around this card in draft? No. You can just incidentally play some humans in your deck and cheat them onto the board for free. They are indestructible, they are attacking, they get ETB. Do I need to say more? She's just really good. She is just very good. She seems janky. She is absolutely not janky. She is just a payoff. So, yeah. Zenith Flare is a 4 mana instant speed. Zenith Flare deals X damage to any target, and you gain X life. Where X is the number of cards with a cycling ability in your graveyard. Very good in the cycling deck. I went up against someone who drafted 4 copies of this, and I had no chance of winning. Because all they need to do is just go land, cycle. Land, cycle, cycle. Land, cycle, cycle, cycle. Land, cycle, cycle. Or cycle, 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 cycle. Well, however much cycling they have. Once they got 4 mana and get 10 cards in the bin, they can just go, my turn. Zenith Flare you for 10, or Zenith Flare you for 9. I gain 9 life. Pass to you. They go, cool, I'm going to swing at you with some creatures. Well, I just gained 9 life, so I didn't actually lose any life by just sitting there and getting hit by their creatures. I cycle a bunch more cards. Pass to opponent. Opponent goes, right, I'm going to hit you again. Cool, I'm down to like 8 life. That's fine, though, because I Zenith Flare you for 12 and you lose the game. So, you can make very uninteractive cycling decks that just aim to Zenith Flare their opponent to death. Especially if you get a couple of Zenith Flares, it becomes very disgusting. Very disgusting. So very, very potent card. If you pick up a couple of copies of these, going to be very good. Now we've got the Alert Heedbonder, which is a 3 mana 2/4. This is now in the Selesnya colours. With a Vigilance. At the beginning of your end step, you gain 1 life for each creature you control with Vigilance. Now that doesn't sound like very much, right? Alert Heedbonder is probably the best Durdle card in the entire set by a massive long shot. I have single-handedly made games trivial by having this guy in play. You know how I said 4 power cards are really good in this set? Or 4 toughness cards, sorry, and I mentioned the main Serval and the Goriak, which, funnily enough, both of them have Vigilance. The Farfinder, the little innocuous creature that pulls lands out of your deck, also has Vigilance. There are a lot of very playable cards with Vigilance, incidentally so. And Alert Heedbonder can sit on the board and just go, hey, in your end step, you gain 3 life. And your opponent goes, I'm going to swing at you. You go, cool, I block some of your creatures, I let the others through. I take some damage. Oh, wait, the Alert Heedbonder just healed that back. I lost nothing. Now you're just playing a game where you're quite happy to durdle the board and play like 1 or 2 more bombs than your opponent may have put in their deck, because your deck can afford to be that little bit extra greedier because Alert Heedbonder is going to keep you alive. So yeah, fantastic card. Alert Heedbonder is really sick. I highly recommend you try out a Abzan style Durdle deck with like some nice selections of Servals, like 2 Servals, 2 Goriaks, couple of Farfinders, and then Alert Heedbonder and slap in a bunch of other good stuff at the top end. Spacegodzilla or whatever, the Death Void Beckoner, or like a Honey Mammoth, even just some generic stuff like Honey Mammoth and some big beat sticks at the top end. Works very well, and it doesn't rely on rares at all. It's a very solid deck type. Next we've got Kahira, which is a 3 mana 3/2 with Vigilance. Companion, each creature card in your starting deck is a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, beast. This is very much a build-around card. You cannot play any humans, but pretty much every other card in the set does follow the convention of cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, beast. So yeah, they're like a generic anthem for all the other cards in the set. They give them +1/+1 in Vigilance. Giving them +1/+1 in Vigilance means that you can swing. Kahira is basically an only watching, or not only watching, and always watching, for pretty much every creature in the set bar humans. So because of that, they're very good, and you can play them in a mono green shell or in a shell that just runs green, doesn't run white, because white has lots of humans in it. It's got other good creatures, don't get me wrong. White has got things like Vulpikeet, which is very, very good. But you could quite happily. I think Vulpikeet's a foxbird, so it doesn't actually benefit from Kahira, which is why one of the reasons you should stay out of white is because a lot of the white cards don't work so well with Kahira. But like green cards especially, and like black cards, I think there's plenty of black cards that work with Kahira. You got lots of nightmares in there. A lot of beasts in green, and dinosaurs in red. I think red's the dinosaur ones, yeah. And then blue's got elementals and white's got cats. But honestly, I think you're really looking at more a Jund shell with Kahira. That gets probably the most benefit out of them, in my opinion, if you want to play them as a companion. Otherwise, perfectly serviceable card. 3 mana 3/2 with Vigilance isn't the best stat line, but the fact that they come with an anthem that incidentally buffs up some of your creatures you'll have in play, not seeing the problem. So yeah, Kahira, good card. Playing companion, playing your main deck, doesn't really matter. Just solid. Next, we got the sort of Vigilance Lord. It's the Frondon Felidar is a 4-mana 3/5 in Selesnya. Has Vigilance. Creatures you control with Vigilance have pay 1, tap target creature. Of course, this is an incredibly powerful effect, especially with a critical mass of Vigilant creatures. As long as you have as many creatures as your opponent has creatures, you can just tap their board out, swing at them, get damage in, pass to them, tap their board out again in their end step, swing at them in your turn, pass to them, and just rinse repeat until they're dead. So the Frondon Felidar is a very, very powerful card. Highly rate. If you pull this in your first pack, try build the Heed Bonder package with a bunch of Vigilance creatures. It works out very nicely. Next we've got Kinnan. This is into the Simic cards. Kinnan is a 2-mana 2/2 legendary human. Whenever you tap a non-land permanent for mana, add 1 mana of any type that permanent produced. This is Dorks and Rocks, i.e. your Druids and your crystals. The crystals are in the set. Honestly, I think Kinnan's kind of weak for the mana producing effect. His mana producing effect will not come up very often. However, the activated effect of pay Simic and 5 to look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a non-human creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Kinnan is effectively a grizzly bear that in most games, Kinnan is a grizzly bear that has the additional effect of cheating cards out of your deck once you go to top decking and don't have any mana left, or you have lots of mana up, but you're sort of you get the idea. He cheats. That makes him good in draft. So yeah, Kinnan is a good grizzly bear. That's basically what he is. Next, we've got Primal Empathy. This is a Simic enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if you control a creature with the greatest power among creatures on the battlefield. Otherwise, put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control. So, what does that mean? That means if you have a 2-power creature on board and your opponent has a 2-power creature on board, you draw a card. Pretty good. If your opponent has got a 3-power creature on board and you have a 2-power creature on board, you put the 1/1 counter on your creature. Also very good. It encourages your opponent to play a little bit more recklessly with their cards because they want to get more power on board to stop you drawing extra cards, which can leave them open to being counterspelled by things like Convolute, or it can leave them open to removal if you're, say, playing in Sultai. So yeah, Primal Empathy can basically encourage your opponent to play badly, that you can force them to overcommit to a board, and it can also, and other than that, it can just give you good value by putting counters on your creatures. So good enchantment. Trumpeting Gnar, 3 mana for 3/3, which has mutate for 5, so very expensive mutate. But whenever this creature mutates, create a 3/3 green beast creature token. So the idea is that you mutate this, you play this and mutate other things onto it. That's sort of how it's intended. And if you do that, then you're going to get a bunch of 3/3 tokens, which is quite powerful. This is the beast token that Vivian also creates copies of, that then puts counters on, more or less. But yeah, 3/3 tokens are no joke. This is only uncommon, so it's quite easy to pick up a copy of it and then play it in a mutate shell. Very nice. Next, got Parcel Beast. This card deserves a special mention. It's a 4 mana for a 2/4, but it mutates for 2, so it's incredibly cheap to mutate. It has pay 1, tap. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you put it onto the battlefield. If you don't put the card onto the battlefield, put it into your hand. What does this mean? Well, this works especially well with whatchamacallit? Glimmerbell, that innocuous blue elemental flyer, for the 1/3 for 2. The Glimmerbell has you can mutate onto the Glimmerbell, and the Glimmerbell has pay 1 colorless and 1 blue to untap it. So what you can do is you can hold up your flying elemental parcel beast jellyfish, and if your opponent decides, oh well, I'm not going to swing, you can go, cool. I pay one, look at the top card of my deck, I put a land into play. I then untap the parcel beast, and I tap it again, and put another land into play or draw a card. So it becomes a incredibly potent engine. That's not that expensive, honestly. It costs you 4 mana to get 2 activations out of it, which is pretty good. 4 mana, draw 2 cards, draw and or play the top 2 cards of your deck. Every turn for 4 mana is really good in draft. Like, that combo itself will win you games just by how much advantage in cards and mana that you generate. So yeah, Parcel Beast, Jellyfish combo, very good. This is only uncommon, so you can see these fairly regularly. Mutating it onto other stuff, or even just playing it as a 4 mana creature, and then getting the card advantage out of it is also relevant. So Parcel Beast is a high pick for me. Next we have Karuga, which is a 5 mana 5/4. This is a companion. I would not play in the companion zone because he states your starting deck contains only cards with CMC cost 3 or greater and land cards. So you can't play any 1-drops, you can't play any 2-drops, you're stuck playing 3-drops and up. Do not do this in draft. 2-drops are like the crux of your deck. Do not play this guy as your companion. However, play him in your deck. Why? Because he's a 5 mana 5/4, yes, but also when Karuga the Macro Sage enters the battlefield, so this is the purpose of playing him as a companion, draw a card for each other permanent you control with CMC cost 3 or greater. So he basically refills your hand. However, think about it like this. If you're only playing 3-cost cards, it's going to take you longer to dump your hand out because you're not playing anything turn 1 and 2. If you have a well-curved deck, so you go play, even if you don't play a 1-drop, you just go play some mana, play a 2-drop, play a 3-drop, play a 4-drop, play Karuga. Karuga is much more likely to be refilling your hand if you're playing 1 and 2 drops than he is if you're playing just 3 drops. If you're just playing 3 drops, what's going to happen is play land, play land, play land, play 3-drop, move to opponent goes, cool, well I have creatures in play, so I guess I'll just swing at you, maybe trade, maybe I'll just blow your creature up with a spell. You go, okay, well I play land, I play a 4-drop. Right, well opponent's gonna go, right, well if I didn't kill your 3-cost creature, I'll kill your 4-cost creature. Or I'll just hold up my removal for when you play Karuga. But now that you've like signposted that Karuga is your companion, they'll go, I'll just keep your stuff off the board. Shrug. Like, if they can. And then his ability to draw cards is a lot more diminished. Whereas if you're playing a much more well-curved deck, it also gives you the added bonus of once Karuga resolves, the creatures that you pull from your deck, if they're 1 or 2-drop creatures, that you might be able to play them following Karuga. So you could play Karuga for 5, you have 1 mana open, you draw a 1 mana card off your deck, you can then play that card. So it has the additional advantage of working well with lower cost decks. So I'd rather play Karuga in the deck as opposed to in the companion slot. Next, we're moving on to the ultimatums and the wedged cards. There's a few of these, so I'll go over them as we go. We have the Triomes. The Triomes are not cards I would first pick. You may see them as fixing in your colours, maybe. Honestly, the Triomes I have very rarely picked up in a draft because I've rarely got them pack 2 or 3 in my colours. If I do pick them up pack 2 or 3 in my colours, I feel very happy about it. But these are lands that you will probably have to craft because you're not picking them up very often in draft. That's the way I see it. That's why I don't even have 4 copies of most of them because I just didn't pick any up in draft. The crystals are the rocks of the set. They tap for their particular wedge. You can also cycle them for 2. They cost 3 to cast. I honestly think that the crystals are kind of meh. I would not pick these up. There's very few decks I would actively play these in. So I would just argue, just don't pick them up, really. Right, next we've got the Mardu cards. We've got these are the sort of Mardu, the 5 Mardu cards. We've got the proper Mardu mythic creature, which is Snapped Axe, also known as King Kaiser. The Awoken Titan. It is a 4 mana 3/5 in Mardu. Double strike. That's it. However, when you mutate Snapdax, it costs double white and black or red. Keep in mind, the wedge mutate cards can be played outside of their wedge, assuming you have whatever their main color is. Snapdax is main white, so you'd have to be playing a white base deck, which is, given I've listed white as more of a support color, you could play white as a main base deck, and I wouldn't see a problem with it because you'd just be like splashing red or black, which works well with Snapdax. Whenever Snapdax mutates, not only does it make the creature a 3/5 double striker, but it also deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain 4 life. So yeah, all of the mythic wedge cards are total bombs. If you resolve them, you're probably winning the game. Snapdax is no exception, though I will put Snapdax on the weaker end of the scale, mostly because his mutate cost kind of forces him into white. White is a color that Wizards of the Coast doesn't like anymore, so they print kind of naff cards for it. I'm sorry, White, but, you know, Wizards just needs to actually print you some good cards at some point. Anyway, Offspring's Revenge. This is the Mardu enchantment. It costs 5. At the beginning of your combat in your turn, exile target red, white, or black creature from the graveyard. And create a token. That's a copy of it, except it's a 1/1. It gains haste. This is not good. Do not take this enchantment. It does nothing. It will never help you in your games. There are a few circumstances where you'll get a nice ETB out of it, but the fact that you're tapping 5 mana for an enchantment that inherently doesn't do jack, except create 1/1s, is kind of trash. So just don't do it to yourself. Next, we have the Ruinous Ultimatum. Ruinous Ultimatum is a 7 mana Mardu. Which gives 7 mana in Mardu. Destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control. If you can resolve this in draft, you just won the game. That's pretty much how it goes. I have built decks around this. I have successfully built decks around it. The ultimatums, for the most part, are just total bombs. So this is no exception. This is a one-sided total board wipe. It can also kill enchantments like Pacifism and Capture Sphere. So Ruinous Ultimatum will flat out win you the game when you resolve it, in 9 times out of 10. Next, we've got the Teamer ones. We've got the Ketria Triome and the Crystal, kind of the same boat. We then have Song of Creation, which is 4 mana. You may play additional lands on each of your turns. Whenever you cast a spell, draw 2 cards. At the beginning of your end step, discard your hand. This is a total trap. Do not take this. It will not work. Don't try to build around it. Enough said. Pretty cool for standard. You want to make some janky combo decks or historic or something, but not in draft. Not in draft. Just don't do it. Then we have Ghidorah or Luna, Apex of Wishes. I actually prefer Ghidorah. I think the art is better, and I think it's cooler to have a 3-headed lightning-breathing dragon than it is to have Luna, which kind of just looks like some kind of like wombat or something. I don't know. A flying wombat. It's a 6/6 flying trampler, so it's a flampler with 6/6 for 5, so very good stat line. Incredibly good stat line. Very pushed. And its mutate is primarily blue, with a splash of green or red, and it costs 3 colors. Whenever this creature mutates, exile cards on top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent card. Put that card onto the battlefield or into your hand. So we're gonna take Ghidorah. I'm going to take out the lands. I just want to do a quick comparison just to show you something. Because I think you know what's going to happen. We're going to take a look at Auspicious Starix, and we're going to take a look at Ghidorah back to back. So let's just remind ourselves of the text on Auspicious Starix. So it's a 5 mana 6/6. So same as Illuna. Except it doesn't have flying and trample. So you know you're making the mana cost more awkward by playing Teamer, but you get flying and trample out of it, so that's pretty cool. The mutate is exactly the same. Mutate cost on Illuna is obviously a lot more awkward because it requires double blue and a red or a green, whereas Starix is just one green. Whenever Starix mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile X permanent cards, where X is the number of times this creature has mutated. Put those cards onto the battlefield. Iluna says, whenever this creature mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent. Put that card onto the battlefield or into your hand. Iluna specifically exiles non-land. So it exiles your lands and it exiles your spells until it hits a creature. Then it puts that creature onto the battlefield. Starix can ramp you by giving you land. You might be thinking, well, I don't need land if I'm just cheating my creatures into play. Yes, but Starix has exile X. If you mutate multiple cards onto Iluna, Iluna ever only flips the top creature off your deck, or top enchantment, or whatever. Starix will scale with the amount of times you mutate. Starix, in my opinion, is actually a better card than Iluna, because it also fits in more shells, because Iluna requires you to be playing blue primary, and blue, as I've said, is a supportive colour as opposed to a base, which makes Iluna a bit difficult to mutate. If you're playing Teamer, sure, go for it. But yeah, I think Iluna's a bit difficult to mutate because of the double blue requirement, and then you're also forcing yourself to be in green or red, so you're either in Izzet or in Simic, and you could just play Starix in Izzet or you could play it in Simic. You can't play it in Izzet. You could play it in Teamer. You could play it in Simic. You could play it in Golgari. You could play it in Selesnya. It's got much more flexibility, and honestly, the effect is more powerful. Well, the effect is quote unquote debatable, more powerful, but I think because it scales, it becomes more powerful. So I feel bad. Iluna, don't get me wrong, Iluna is still a total bomb in draft, but I do feel bad that Starix is actually more of a bomb and is it uncommon. So just to point out how powerful the Starix is, the Teamer Mythic is on par, if not a bit worse than the Starix. The only thing that puts it ahead is the fact that it also has flying and trample. Okay, moving on. We've got the Teamer Ultimatum, which is 7 mana. They're all 7 mana. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put any number of permanent cards from among them onto the battlefield and the rest into your hand. So it's 7 mana, play and or draw 5. So evidently it gives you a hell of a lot of card advantage or board presence. So yes, Genesis Ultimatum, very powerful, just like Ruinous Ultimatum. Wins games if you resolve it. Very, very good. Doesn't need much more explanation than that. We then got the Triome and the blah blah blah. We've got the Death's Oasis, which is the Abzan enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, then return a creature card with lesser CMC than the creature that died from your graveyard to your hand. This mills you pretty quickly. You can also pay 1 to sack Death's Oasis, and you gain life equal to the greatest CMC across among creatures you control, which is cool. I think this card is a bit too janky to play in draft. A bit too janky. I've seen it work. I have seen it work. But I think it mills you too much over the course of a game. Because then you're like, cool, my 3-drop died. I get a 2-drop back. The 2-drop dies. I get a 1-drop back. The 1-drop dies. Because all the 3, 2, and 1-drop cards all die to the same freaking creature on my opponent's side of the board because they played a 4 or 5 mana creature, right? You just milled yourself 6 in between probably drawing a couple of cards, so you almost rinsed like a quarter of your deck in losing a 3, 2, and a 1-drop since resolving Death's Oasis. Do you see what I mean? Yeah, sure, you're getting the additional value if you can pull creatures back, blah blah blah. It feels like one of those enchantments that is probably going to do more harm than good over the longer course of a game. So I would not take this. I have tried a deck using it and it didn't go very well. I have also seen decks that use it and work, but the amount of times I see it work compared to the amount of times I see it fail, you get the idea. So However, we do have Nethroi, also known as Biolant, but Nethroi, Apex of Death, which is the Abzan creature. This is the one that I drafted the most. Nethroi came as a pack 1 pick 1 the most out of all the mythic creatures, and it was hella powerful. Maybe that's why I won Abzan so much, but yeah. 5 mana in. I've also played plenty of Abzan decks without Nethroi, and they went just as well, but yeah. 5 mana for a 5/5 with Death Touch and Lifelink. So, this thing trades with whatever it blocks or is blocked by. It also gives you 5 life. So, very nice for stalling the game out. 7 mana to mutate. 4 colors, a white or a green, and double black. So, it's in base black. Base black is good. Whenever this creature mutates, return any number of target creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it's a mass resurrection style card on its mutate, which means you can mutate it multiple times in a go. You can mutate it onto a creature, and then you could mutate. You could play it as a creature, mutate onto it, and mutate onto it again in the same turn. Play 2/3 cost mutates, and get 20 power worth of creatures from your bin. You can do that. Nethroi, very strong, very strong. Highly recommend you pick this and play around it. Eerie Ultimatum, Abzan Ultimatum, return any number of permanent cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. If you resolve this, you win the game. That's just how it is. It's the same with Nethroi. It's Abzan mythic cards. These 2 mythic cards are basically, if you resolve these, you win the game. Same kind of goes for these, but not quite in the same level. Snapdax goes, I remove something and gain you some life. Ghidorah goes, I get you a free creature. Nethroi goes, I get you 10 power worth of free creatures. Or I get, the difference is staggering in how powerful Nethroi is compared to the others in terms of raw value in a draft format. So there you go. Next, we've got Jeskai. We've got Rodan, also known as Vadrok. Vadrok is a flying first strike 3/3 in Jeskai. You mutate for double red and either blue or white hybrid with 1 colorless. Whenever this creature mutates, you may cast target non-creature card with CMC cost 3 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. Why is this card good? This card is very good. It lets you recur removal. It lets you recur enchantments that or like Springjaw traps. You can turn a creature into a 3/3 flying first striker, which is nice. Or you can just play it on curve as a 3/3 flying first striker. So a very solid creature with a nice effect to it. It does require a lot more build around than the other monsters, sort of, but it's still very good. So yes, but it does require a bit more build around. I'd say it's probably the weakest of the monsters just because it requires that sort of deck build behind to back it up, but it's still very good. Next we have Narset. Narset is in Jeskai. The Jeskai Walker of the set. I should probably mention Vivian. Vivian's the other Walker of the set, as well as Looker. Looker's in mono red. Looker's probably the least good in draft. Vivian is insane because Vivian makes tokens, and walkers that make tokens in draft are always nuts. Narset, less so. Narset's 4 mana for 4 loyalty in Jeskai. +1, you gain 2 life, add blue, red, or white. Spend this mana only to cast non-creature. Obviously, you can't use it to cast instant because you'd have to move phases. So Narset ramps you to cast sorceries, which is fine, I guess. It gives you 2 life. The -2 is draw a card, then you may discard a card. When you discard a non-land card this way, Narset deals damage equal to the card's CMC to target creature or planeswalker. Much better. You can play Narset and then just immediately down-tick her and blow up their biggest threat, or you could play Narset, down-tick her, blow up a threat, down-tick her again on the next turn, blow up another threat. And that's it. That's all Narset needs to do, really. And then her -6, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this emblem deals 2 damage to any target, probably face. But yeah, I've never seen anyone ult her in draft. It would be like ulting a Teferi 5. You pretty much won the game. Or it'd be like ulting a Ral out of GRN. You've pretty much won the game. You haven't necessarily won the game, but you've pretty much won the game when that happens. Narset, I think Narset's ult is a little weak for a Wedge Walker. Honestly, I think Narset as a 4-mana Wedge Walker is kind of naff. Truth be told. And in draft, she's not that amazing. She's fine, but she ain't amazing. If you first pick one her, fair enough. Fair enough. You're building Jeskai. Not a bad thing to do. So Jeskai was pretty good. Jeskai Flyers especially was pretty good. So I can live with that. Next got Whirlwind of Thought, which is a 4-mana Jeskai enchantment. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, draw a card. Probably one of the better enchantments, just because it's quite playable. It gives you a lot of card advantage as you play spells. It's still quite expensive, but it's the more consistent or reliable card advantage you're going to get out of the Wedge enchantments. So I like Whirlwind of Thought. I think it's good to pick up in draft. This is probably more first pickable than Narset, honestly, because you can very much build around this and ensure it's going to get value. Next, we have the Inspired Ultimatum, which is the Jeskai Ultimatum. Target player gains 5. Inspired Ultimatum deals 5 to any target. Then you draw 5. Again, if you resolve this, you're gaining life, removing a creature, and filling your hand. If you do those 3 things with 1 card, you're probably winning the draft, unless you were so far behind on board, nothing was going to save you short of a board wipe. So there you have it. Jeskai Ultimatum, very good. Finally, we've got Sultai, which has Titan's Nest. 4-mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put that card into your graveyard. Exile a card from your graveyard to add colorless. Spend this mana only to cast a colored spell without X in its mana cost. This is actually pretty good in draft. I never drafted it because I was like too on the fence about it, but after playing around with it in janky standard decks, I actually thought to myself, you know what? If all you're interested in doing is exiling some cards you can't play from your graveyard to play a huge card, you're doing good. So yeah, Titan's Nest I changed my mind about. I I can't say for certain because I didn't play around with it, but I think this card is good in a Sultai sort of big value pile, where your lower cost cards, as they get removed, you filter them into mana. If you can basically go, I have a land in hand that I can play, so if I've got land on top, I'll put it in bin because I can still turn it into mana. So it helps kind of ramp you like that. So yeah, Titan's Nest, good. Next we have Bioquartz Spacegodzilla, which is also known as Brokos, Apex of Forever. 5 mana, 6/6 of trample. So good stats. Good stats. Mutate for 5 as well with primary green. So another card where it's primary mutate is a good base color. You may cast Brokos Apex of Forever from your graveyard using its mutate. In other words, even if you lose Brokos, you can get it back and mutate it onto any creature you have in play, any non-human creature you have in play. So you can turn, once you have 5 mana, you can turn any creature you have in play into a 6/6 trampler, which is pretty good in draft to have a creature that self-recurs the stats of 6/6 trample onto anything you've got in play, more or less. Is a good value. So yeah, I rate Brokos pretty highly. Next is Emergent Ultimatum. This is probably the ultimatum I actually cast the most during a Ikoria draft. People just seem to pass this. They just don't seem to rate this at all. As far as I can tell, it's 7 mana. Choose 3 6+ CMC cards in your deck. Your opponent lets you cast 2 of them, and the other one you shuffle back in. So that's basically what it does. What it says is search your library for 3 monocolored cards with different names and exile them. Your opponent chooses one of those cards. You shuffle that card into your library, and then you cast the other 2 without paying their mana costs. So what you can do is you go Emergent Ultimatum, and you cast, I don't know, Honey Mammoth, and a Greater Sandworm, and a Boon of the Wishgiver, which is the 6 mana draw 4 card from before in blue. That I was like, I'll tell you some cards that make that good. This is one of them. And your opponent goes, oh well, I don't want them to have the Sandworm because I can't chump it because I've only got chump creatures. I don't mind the Honey Mammoth because it's a 6/6 that I can chump with my tokens. And I'll let them have the Boon of the Wishgiver. Cool. You paid 7 mana to get a 6/6, gain 4, and draw 4. It's basically like the Jeskai Ultimatum in that scenario. So good stuff. But it gives you board presence. You can literally go, I want 3 creatures. I want this big creature, I want this big creature, I want this big creature. And your opponent goes, well, you can have 2 of them. It's like, cool. I tutored my deck for 2 threats and put them into play. The 3rd threat goes back into the deck, so you don't even lose the card that your opponent doesn't want you to cast. You can then cast that later on in the game. So Emergent Ultimatum, very solid card as well. I don't know why so many people passed it. If you resolve this, you probably win. So, and also it says mono-colored cards. This is a nice like a nuance to the ultimatum. It says cards, which means you can cast instants and sorceries with it, like I said with Boon of the Wishgiver. But you can also cast removal. So you could go, I want a Blood Curdle and a couple of creatures. And if they go, well, I don't want him to have 2 creatures, you get to destroy one of their creatures anyway. So, seems like a good deal. Anyway, that's like the Ikoria draft. In summary, what do I think of Ikoria draft? Playing wedges is fun. Abzan is good. The colours that I think are strongest are green, followed by black. They're the base colours. They're the colours that perform well with most cards that you'll draft. Red is a flexible colour that can fit lots of different archetypes, with blue and white playing support. White being more creature and combat trick based support with some removal, whereas blue being more the card draw and techie support with things like counter spells, and with some more techie creatures like the ones that draw cards and they deal damage, etc, etc. So blue is a much more tech support colour, because, you know, blue is IT, and white is the more creature based support colour because white is the reserves. So there you go. That's how those 2 colors sort of match up in Ikoria, with black and green being the core and red being pretty flexible. It can fit most stuff. That is basically my core summary of the Ikoria set in draft. Having earned 100 packs playing, I played a lot of draft. So, and it was all the BO3 draft. So that actually makes up a lot of games. Playing the BO3 draft. Yes, I know the BO1 draft is like, oh yeah, but you play 7 games in BO1. Yeah, but you technically play a very minimum of 6 games in the BO3. So that's if you lose both games, then lose both games, and go 0 wins. Like 0 wins, 0 wins. Even if you go you win 1 game, lose 2, win 1 game, lose 2, win 1 game, lose 2. You played 9 games, so I played a lot of draft. And that is what I would say is my summary. So take it with a pinch of salt. I ain't the best Magic player in the world, so a lot of it will be based on my own personal experience, my own play styles. But that's personally how I found the draft to go, and that's an idea of how I rate some of the cards. If you were planning on playing some draft yourself, but you were looking for like a good guide with someone who had some experience playing the draft. So they have it. Other experiences I had with the draft, when I was drafting with players, because we now have player drafting, I found that cycling decks were getting hoovered up quite regularly. So people do like to force draft the cycling. That's probably the only thing I noticed being force draft, really. I believe some people did try and force draft Izzet decks as well. I think because the Spellslinger deck was quite focused, you had to kind of force draft it to get it to work. But when it did, it was quite powerful. I think between those two, that's about the. And I also notice people tend to pass ultimatums because they go 7 mana card. That's really Timmy. I don't want to play that, which is silly because Ikoria is literally the Timmy set. It's all about big stompy creatures and really big stompy spells. So Timmy is all about the really cool, epic, big mana spells, big mana plays, and Ikoria is a set that supports that. Especially if you play by my rule of picking up those 4 toughness creatures, you'll be able to survive until you get your 7 mana cards out. Anyway, standard. I am uploading a video alongside this, which is talking about my standard deck, which is this one, Lazar's Postal Service. I played a lot of janky decks just to see what worked and what didn't. I've been keeping an eye on Twitch, I've been keeping an eye on the meta, and here is my summary of standard with Ikoria. Ikoria has finally flipped standard into nothing but cheaty decks. Bar Flash. I think that's how I sum up standard right now. Between the Fires decks full of Planeswalkers and basically pseudo doubling their mana, but more than that because they play the Planeswalkers, then they have some outlet to use their mana as well. Or just playing Agents of Treachery. Between the elemental ramp packages that are not just ramp packages but also put incredible threats on the board, which feels a bit cheaty because it's like not only am I ramping but I'm also drawing cards and I'm also putting threats in play, all whilst doing so in a tribal shell, and also playing Agent of Treachery. To the sort of like the Thassa, Flicker kind of yoinky decks, which also run elemental packages for the most part. The elemental package is just very cheaty ramp, or it feels like cheaty ramp because it's also draw if you don't ramp, so it's never bad. Whereas the Fires deck is like 3 mana. Sure, you can't play instant speed, but who cares when you're dropping 2 Planeswalkers a turn. And then you've got the mutate decks that have been firing off, with Starix just flipping cards off the top of your deck, and just having like big old mutate stacks. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter if I make a big old mutate stack because I have an uninteractive win condition as well. You've got the Temur Reclamation decks. Yeah. I think my main takeaway of standard is that people, and then there's Winota that's just like flat out just cheating stuff that's not even in her colors straight off out of her library, namely Agent of Treachery. I mention Agent of Treachery a lot. I don't like that card. It fits too many archetypes and is basically the best target for as both an answer and a threat. It's almost always the best target because it just does what it does. It just does what it does. My opinion of standard is that it's not going to be particularly fun with Ikoria. The deck that I've played is a Sultai toolbox with lots of podding and stuff. However, as you can see, it includes the usual suspect of a elemental ramp package. Why? Because it draws tons of cards and requires absolutely no interaction on your opponent's part, and is pretty efficient. Not interacting with opponents is a big thing right now. Just basically playing your deck, playing itself, and then killing your opponent because you got to play more of your deck before your opponent did, is a big thing. I haven't seen people playing hyper control decks. Also, companions make it even worse because between the London Mulligan and companions, it's very rare to see people mull below 6 and not get a good hand, because the companion just makes it easier for people to do that because they have a card. Like, I've literally seen Fires decks that run no creatures, but they still run Kahira because it's a 3 mana creature that they can use to block the board up if they don't have another 3 mana spell. It's literally dumb stuff like that. It's quite silly, really, but that's how it is. So, my takeaway is that Ikoria Standard is all about being as uninteractive as possible, which obviously makes for a very unfun standard, and the main culprits for causing that are in M20. M20 is actually just the least fun set we've had in a very long time. the draft was kind of crap. The cards they brought out were either pretty unusable or totally busted. So yeah, once M20 rotates out for M21, hopefully we can have a fun standard again. We'll also be losing shock lands, so land bases are going to be slower, which is going to encourage people to play slower decks. Or it's just going to encourage more flash decks, because we'll lose Teferi 3. And whilst I think Teferi 3 is a bit too good, he does also act as a way of stopping flash decks from getting out of hand. With no Teferi 3, if we don't get another answer for flash decks, we're going to have a serious problem. I'm hoping we get like a one blue man, like a one blue mana leak that specifically targets flash cards. So it's like 3 mana. It's like Mystic Dispute, but it specifically targets flash as opposed to well, maybe it's like a one. It's literally just like a 2 mana spell that goes target counter target spell with flash or something else. I don't know. It has some other key text on top of it. Maybe it's like counter target flash, draw a card. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that M20 has made for a bit of an unfun standard, and Ikoria hasn't really helped that because companions make the London Mulligan and just opening hands a bit too powerful, as well as adding even further, like extra cards to increase the cheaty cheat or make existing archetypes a bit too strong as well. The only archetype that's arisen as a new archetype from this, well, I suppose there's a couple actually. There's the Lurus decks, but they're just kind of like aggro beatdown decks that just now happen to run Lurus and maybe cut a few things that cost 3 mana. Why run Judith when you can just run Lurus and run more 1 and 2 drops? But also things like I'm trying to think. The Mutate deck with Umori and just getting a Starix pile and just flipping cards off the top of your deck and hoping your opponent doesn't have a board wipe, because that's literally what the Starix decks do. They're just like, there's no board wipe. If you've got a board wipe, they feel real bad because you just like delete their entire board. If they have got a board wipe or whatever, then they haven't got a board wipe, then you just like flip 7 or 8 cards off the top of your deck, play a bunch of land, play some more, get some more creatures in play, pass to opponent, they have no board wipe, you just go in for lethal because Starix is a 6/6 creature. Then the decks also run Hemophages to have an uninteractive win condition if they need it. So yeah, which gives them a lot of reach, unexpected reach. So yeah, I think, how healthy was Ikoria for the meta? The unhealthy stuff about the meta isn't from Ikoria, but it certainly didn't help. We didn't really get any counters to the kind of degeneracy that exists in the decks that are performing currently. It's going to be weird because Fire's decks will go totally out of favor once Fires rotate. Fires won't rotate, but we'll be losing a lot of Planeswalkers that make Fires good. We'll also be losing all the Cavaliers, which also make Fires good. So we'll see. We'll have to see with M21. But that is my exhaustive summary of Magic the Gathering Ikoria. I know it was kind of like a set review, but I was talking about it mostly in terms of draft. As far as standard goes, it's kind of something you need to experiment with yourself. As you can see in my deck list, I have a lot of decks I have experimented with since it came out. Some of them are total jank, some of them are old decks I've now updated, some of them are new decks. It was quite fun. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for watching this far, if you have done. If you didn't, then this message does not apply to you. But yeah, hopefully it helped you inform yourself about some of the things that happen in draft, the kind of things you need to get used to. I do have VODs of all my Ikoria drafts on my Twitch, so go check that out if you're interested in seeing some live draft action. I may download a few of them to put on the channel, but I'm not sure I'll get around to downloading them all because it takes me a very long time to upload those kinds of things. Though I don't mind doing that because I only really play like the first month of a set coming out, and then I put it down. So if I play a couple of weeks drafting and then spend a week or two getting the drafts online and doing set reviews and building decks and things, that's fine. So I may get those downloaded and get those uploaded as well. Anyway, thank you for watching. It's been me, Chaff, come on a coffee. Have fun. Good luck in your drafts, and stay safe. You know, in this time of quarantine, I hope that you're having a good time, and you're not getting sick. And these videos help keep people indoors, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's making sure everybody doesn't spread old Corona-chan around, and just, yeah, doing the world a service by sitting down and watching some magic. Or talking about magic. I've been talking about magic for almost 4 hours now. Jesus Christ. Anyway, thank you guys. I'll see you about. Have a good one.